Chapter 440. The words of the Hua family's great young lord could be described as sonorous and forceful. Everyone in the hall heard this and stared blankly at him and Yang Kai, seemingly thinking that there was some unusual relationship between these two. Lan Chu-dai was a big-breasted beauty. She covered her mouth in surprise. Her beautiful eyes were filled with disbelief. Yang Kai's face went black, knowing that Hua Star's words were too easily misunderstood, so he couldn't help snorting, "Speak clearly." Hua Stars also realized that there was something wrong with his words and couldn't help smiling awkwardly. "Don't misunderstand, it's just that yesterday I made a bet with Brother Kai on whether he could survive last night. This one's eyesight wasn't good enough, so I lost." "What was the bet?" Qiu Yimeng suddenly became interested. She really didn't know about the bet between Yang Kai and Hua Stars. "If I lose, I'll give him my golden feather eagle. If he loses, heh." Yang Kai looked at Hua Stars with a smile. Young Lord Hua has to strip naked and run 10 laps around War City. Everyone couldn't help laughing and many of the women couldn't help blushing. Thinking about the scene of this young Lord Hua running around naked in War City, it really was quite funny. A loss is a loss, there's no need to say it out loud. Hua Stars was extremely depressed, but suddenly his expression turned to one of indignation. "Yang Kai, you can choose. If you want these things, our bet is over, but if you say no, this young master will take off his clothes right now and fulfill the bet, but don't even think about these things. Even this young lord will have to leave this place." Saying so, he opened his folding fan and fanned himself. This young master has never broken a bet with anyone. As he spoke, his expression was one of contentment, without the slightest trace of nervousness. Obviously, Yang Kai would accept the masters and materials he brought with him. Compared with letting him run 10 laps around War City naked, these masters and materials were more practical. As long as Yang Kai wasn't stupid, he would know what to choose. Yang Kai smiled and said confidently, "Then I ask young Lord Hua to take off his clothes." Stars Hua's expression gradually froze as he waved his folding fan stiffly, saying with a bitter expression, "Young Lord Kai, don't be like this, I haven't done anything to offend you. Why must you be so ruthless?" Qiu Yimeng, who was standing to the side. Hua Stars quickly turned to her. Qiu Yimeng, young lord, why are you looking at him?" Qiu Yimeng slowly shook her head and solemnly said, "I can't do anything about this man, you know that." Hua Stars, master. Seeing Fatty Dong sitting there, he quickly stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "This fat brother, at first glance I can see that your relationship with Yang Kai is not shallow." Dong Qing Han's face went black. Hu Xingchen calling him brother fatty really made him unhappy, even if he wasn't happy about it. However, due to the other party's status, Dong Dang couldn't do anything. He could only smile bitterly and say, "Young Master Hua, please forgive me. My words carry little weight." They were contending with each other. Dong Pangzi was very depressed to find that this young Master Hua was actually staring at Lan Chu-dai, who was standing beside him. His pair of eyes were shining with a lustful light. Dong Pangzi could not help but cough. "A beauty." Xing Hua didn't hesitate to praise as he swept his eyes around, quickly discovering Luo Xiaoman again. The light in his eyes became more and more vigorous, and even his nostrils began to emit waves of heat. Luo Xiaoman quickly hid behind Fan Hong, a look of panic filling her face. She had never seen such a lecherous and daring lecher. It was as if the word lecherous was written all over his face. He was even more shameless than Yang Kai. "Yang Kai, are these people all your allies?" Hua Stars suddenly asked. "Yen, they all came here today." Hua Star's face suddenly became serious as he took a few steps forward and arrived in front of Yang Kai. First, he cupped his fists solemnly and said, "Young Lord Kai, I, Hua Stars, was short-sighted and looked down on you. Young Lord Kai, please don't lower yourself to my level. I'm just a playboy young lord, how could I compare to you? Last night's battle, I deeply realized my mistake, so I rushed back to the central capital and begged my father to give me some men and supplies. From now on, I, Hua Stars, am young Lord Kai's man, and when I die, I will be young Lord Kai's ghost. My only request is that you make me stay." Saying so, he actually sat down and muttered, "In any case, I'm going to stay here. You can't drive me away." Qiu Yimeng shook her head and sighed. turning to look at young Kai and saying, I think it's best to let him go. If he really stays here, the women who come here will feel uneasy. Young Kai nodded solemnly, that's what I mean. Young Lord Kai, young Lady Chiu, I was wrong, how can you be like this? Hua Stars was on the verge of tears. Although he had seen countless women, it was rare for him to encounter a woman like Lan Chu Dai and Luo Xiaoman occasionally. He would encounter a prostitute who was attracted by his identity and wealth. Enough. Yang Kai frowned and was too lazy to continue this nonsense, waving his hand and saying, let your people send the things inside. He didn't want to do anything to Hua Stars, nor did he expect him to bring people and supplies. It was just that a playboy like Hua Stars wouldn't listen to him in the future. After suffering this loss, Yang Kai estimated that Hua Stars would restrain himself a lot in front of him in the future. Hearing this, Hua Stars was overjoyed and quickly got up from the ground, shouting to his subordinates, what are you waiting for? Quickly send the things inside. Also, tell our people to behave themselves. Don't think you're so great just because you're from the Hua family. Everyone here is a friend, do you understand? Yes. The few people from the Hua family nodded and hurriedly left with the boxes. The Hua family young lord grinned and walked over to Luo Xiaoman's side, asking with a smile, what's your name, beautiful woman? Luo Xiaoman was frightened and stood up timidly, walking over to Qiu Yimeng and tugging on her clothes. Elder sister Qiu, seeing this delicate appearance of a helpless woman begging for protection, Hua Stars couldn't help but feel excited. Qiu Yimeng patted her hand and sneered at Hua Stars, if you dare have any ideas about her, I'll make sure you die without a burial. Hua Stars laughed dryly, so there's someone behind you. Don't worry, Qiu Yimeng is under your protection, so I promise I won't touch her. Saying so, he rushed over to Lan Chu Dai, but before he had time to ask, Lan Chu Dai smiled and said, I am Yang Kai's senior sister. Hua Stars suddenly became speechless and felt extremely depressed. Don't make trouble. Qiu Yimeng snorted, although you're lustful, you're not that horny. What's more, with your identity as the Hua family's young lord, what kind of beautiful woman can't you get? Using this kind of method to resolve your embarrassment is too clumsy. Hua Stars scratched his head and smiled, you can see it, but it's pointless to say it out loud. Saying so, he shrugged his shoulders and found a seat to sit down, quickly restraining the arrogance on his face. Waiting for him to calm down, Qiu Yimeng smiled slightly, Yang Kai, I think you need to plan carefully. I'm afraid your house will become more and more lively in the future. Yesterday, it was quiet here, but today, 3 groups of people have arrived. The other young lords shouldn't have such great charm. Although it's lively with so many people, the various forces are not familiar with each other. If you don't coordinate properly, I'm afraid there will be some inevitable conflicts. Yang Kai chuckled, with you here, why should I bother? Qiu Yimeng glared at him, do you really think I'm a servant? Capable people do more work. Dong 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 also smiled, if young Lady Qiu is the one to coordinate, my Dong family will not object. Purple Fern Valley as well. Fan Hong nodded gently. They were all first-class forces and their strength was about the same, but Qiu Yimeng was different. She was from the central capital's Qiu family and her personal strength was high, so she was indeed qualified to coordinate the overall situation. Although it is somewhat embarrassing to say this, my reflecting moon sect is also willing to listen to young Lady Qiu. Not only us, I think the people who come later will also have no objections. Chen Shueshu said. The people who come later? Qiu Yimeng's eyes lit up as she asked. Yang Kai also looked at him curiously. Chen Shueshu smiled and said, because we weren't sure if this Yang Kai was the one we knew before, my junior sister and I decided to take the initiative to inquire about the situation. If he is, then my reflecting moon sect will participate in the inheritance war to help junior brother Yang. If he is not, then my reflecting moon sect will not participate in this muddy water. So that's how it is. Then, how long will it take for your sect's people to arrive? Qiu Yimeng didn't show any contempt towards his reflecting moon sect just because they were a second-class sect, which made Chen Shueshu feel very gratified. They'll arrive within 3 days and are already on their way. Once we send word back, they'll decide whether or not to continue. Chen Shueshu smiled and looked at Yang Kai. It's not just our reflecting moon sect, There are many others who are also on the way. Who are they? Yang Kai was a little surprised. They're all people you know. Chen Shuai-shu smiled lightly. In addition to our Reflecting Moon sect, there is also Water Moon Hall, Pure Heart Palace, Soaring Feather Pavilion, and 10,000 Flower Palace. 10,000 Flower Palace's people are also participating in the Inheritance War? Qiu Yimeng couldn't help feeling surprised while Huoxing couldn't help laughing. Interesting, this will be a feast for the eyes. 10,000 Flower Palace was a very special sect, a first-class sect composed entirely of women. Because they were all women, their competitive spirit wasn't strong and they had never participated in the previous inheritance wars. However, Qiu Yimeng hadn't expected that this time, 10,000 Flower Palace's people would actually participate and even choose Yang Kai's side. Because these sects suffered heavy losses in the battle with the Ash-Grey Cloud Evil Land a few days ago, they didn't intend to participate, but when they heard that there was a Yang Kai here, they all became interested. Chen Shuai-shu explained. Chapter 441. Thank you for your kindness. Yang Kai showed a trace of gratitude. In the last war with the Ash-Grey Cloud Evil Land, almost all the first-class forces had been involved. Every one of them had suffered losses, but some had suffered large losses while others had suffered small losses. Yang Kai hadn't expected that these people, who had almost been forgotten by Yang Kai, would be able to persuade their sect's elders to participate in the Inheritance War because of his existence. In particular, the people from 10,000 Flower Palace had broken hundreds of years of precedent and must have encountered a lot of resistance from their elders. Yang Kai could imagine the hardships involved. Most importantly, last night's events had not yet reached their ears, so they didn't know the current situation in War City. Without knowing Yang Kai's current situation, the fact that they had come to him without hesitation was the most important thing. The people he had made friends with in the isolated world were all sincere in wanting to help. After all, Yang Kai had saved their lives from the hands of the Tianlang dynasty cultivator. These people were all leaders of the younger generation of their respective sect. Water Moon Hall, Pure Heart Palace, Soaring Feather Pavilion, 10,000 Flower Palace. Qiu Yimeng's beautiful eyes flashed brilliantly, her face filled with an attractive luster as she sighed, all first-class forces. The first three aside, 10,000 Flower Palace actually came to participate in the Inheritance War because of you, Yang Kai. Your face is really big. Just how many people have you met in the past few years? Dong Qinghan and Fan Hong also looked at Yang Kai in amazement, wondering how he had such a wide range of contacts. Chen Shuai-shu smiled and shook his head. In fact, there are 2 other sects that I can't contact. If I could, I'm afraid they would also come. Oh, which 2 sects? Qiu Yimeng asked with great interest. She also wanted to inquire about the details of Yang Kai. One is the Endless Sea Islands Azura sect and the other is the Tianlang dynasty's Sen Luo temple. Everyone was visibly moved. The Endless Sea Islands Azura sect. Of all the people present, only Qiu Yimeng knew the details of this sect. Although it was based in the Endless Sea Islands, it was still a first-class force, no weaker than the first-class forces of the Great Han Dynasty. This was because the sects in the outer seas occupied many islands with abundant spirit qi. These islands produced some materials that the Great Han Dynasty didn't have. This would make it easier for the cultivator of the overseas sects to cultivate. As for that Dark Azura Hall, everyone had heard of it before. The superpower of the Tianlang dynasty. Their status was equivalent to the central capital's 8 great families. As long as one had a bit of knowledge, they would naturally not be unfamiliar with this name. Everyone present was a young master and young lady of a first-rate force, so how could they not have heard of the great name of Dark Azura Hall? Young Lord Kai is truly amazing. Not only do you know friends from the Endless Sea Islands, you even have friendly relations with people from other countries. This Fan Hong is truly impressed. You bastard. Qiu Yimeng ground her teeth. Before, when I asked you how many contacts and helpers you had, you told me you had none. I almost believed you. Let's see how you're going to hide it now. Yang Kai chuckled and shook his head, not bothering to explain. He didn't include the people Chen Shuai-shu had mentioned, but the way these sect disciples knew how to repay their kindness surprised him and warmed his heart. Junior brother Yang, since this place is really yours, I'll send a message first. In that case, I'll go back and report the news first so that the people from the sect can rush over as quickly as possible. Also, the Soaring Feather Pavilion, Pure Heart Palace, and 10,000 Flower Palace all need me to send a message to inform them. I'm not sure, but if they know you're here, they'll definitely be very happy. Chen Shuaishu proposed excitedly. Yang Kai nodded. Then I'll have to trouble you. Pausing for a moment, he called out, Yingju. Inside the hall, a vague figure appeared like a ghost. No one knew where he had been hiding before, nor how he had appeared. It was as if he had always been there. The vague figure rippled and gradually condensed into a solid form, revealing the thin but shrewd Yingju. Everyone present was shocked, especially the immortal Ascension Boundary Masters standing behind the various young lords and young ladies. Even they hadn't noticed Yingju's aura before. This elusive blood warrior was really extraordinary. Subordinate is here. Escort brother Chen out of the city. Yes. Chen Shuaishu and Su Xiao Yu arriving in War City wasn't a big deal, but after leaving Yang Kai's house, they would definitely be regarded as enemies. If they weren't protected, they would likely be intercepted. Each of the Yang family's young lords had their own intelligence network, so naturally they would do everything possible to suppress the new forces of their opponents. Chen Shuaishu obviously knew this and didn't refuse, instead cupping his fists to Yingju, his expression dignified and respectful. Then I'll have to trouble Senior Ying. Junior brother Yang, junior sister, and I will take our leave first. Little sister Shu, you stay here. You can go alone. Qiu Yimeng suddenly said with a smile, don't misunderstand, I just want to know what this isolated world you spoke of is all about. What did that bastard do to you in that isolated world to make you so grateful? Hearing this, Chen Shuaishu smiled lightly. Good, junior sister, you stay here and accompany young lady Qiu. Brother can go alone and return quickly. Saying so, he cupped his fists to Yang Kai and turned to leave. Yingju nodded and his body blurred again, disappearing in the next instant. Qiu Yimeng, you arrange things for them. Yang Kai said before turning to the others, I don't think there will be any fighting in the near future, so we can take advantage of this opportunity to get to know each other. Where are you going? Qiu Yimeng asked. Cultivating. Yang Kai grinned and strode away. Cultivation madman. Qiu Yimeng shook her head and smiled bitterly. His strength isn't without reason. Hua Stars said thoughtfully, his expression becoming frivolous, if I worked half as hard as him, I wouldn't be too bad, right? Qiu Yimeng was too lazy to respond. Inside his room, Yang Kai sat cross-legged on the floor, inspecting the Black Book space. During this period of crazy gathering, the Black Book space was filled with a variety of materials, as well as finished pills. As for artifacts, besides the box of Earth-grade ones that Stars Hua had brought today, there weren't many. These finished artifacts could be distributed to arm his own forces. Yang Kai's mental fortitude wasn't bad, but when he saw the dazzling array of materials, he couldn't help feeling slightly moved. These materials included spirit herbs and herbs used in alchemy, rare metals of the 5 elements, all kinds of spirit pills, and rare materials that were rarely seen in the world. Everything could be found here. If there was a good alchemist or artifact refiner here, using this huge batch of materials, it would be enough to refine many rare and useful spirit pills and artifacts. Yang Kai suddenly found that unknowingly, he had actually gathered a wealth not inferior to that of a medium-sized family. And this was just the beginning. The Bamboo Knot Gang was still constantly purchasing materials from the outside world, and as more forces came to join them, more and more materials would be brought in. Not only was Yang Kai gathering materials, but the other Yang family young lords were also doing the same, it was just that Yang Kai was one step ahead of them. The first result of the Yang family's inheritance war was that the price of alchemy and artifact refining materials had all risen. As the price of materials rose, the status of alchemists and artifact refiners also rose. Many alchemists and artifact refiners had also gathered in War City and the central capital, waiting for the Yang family young lords to recruit them. Yesterday was the first day of the inheritance war, and all the Yang family young lords were focused on competing for the first victory. But today, all the Yang family young lords had received news that they were recruiting high-grade alchemists and artifact refiners, and the treatment they received was absolutely excellent. The higher the grade of the alchemist and artifact refiner, the more important they would be. Only the eighth brother, Yang Quan, and Yang Kai didn't make any moves. Yang Quan was aware that victory was hopeless, and even if he recruited alchemists and artifact refiners, there would be no one willing to work for him, so naturally he was too lazy to bother. On the other hand, Yang Kai didn't care about alchemists and artifact refiners from outside. He was already prepared. Sorting out the finished pills in the black book space, Yang Kai took out all the yang attribute pills and those that cultivated spiritual energy. When he saw the yin-yang monster ginseng, Yang Kai's expression couldn't help becoming slightly startled. Where did Su Yang go? He had already ordered the Bamboo Knot Gang to send out hundreds of people to inquire, but there was still no news. Even the several elders of High Heaven Pavilion and Ling Tai Shu seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth. Sighing slightly, Yang Kai realized that High Heaven Pavilion still carried the name of an evil sect. The world was still afraid of the existence of the Demon Lord. As long as Yang Kai didn't win the inheritance war, he wouldn't be able to restore High Heaven Pavilion's reputation. The name of an evil sect wasn't a big deal. The key was that the Demon Lord was from High Heaven Pavilion. This was the fundamental reason why all the great forces feared High Heaven Pavilion. If they could cultivate a Demon Lord, it didn't mean they couldn't cultivate a second. Calming his thoughts, Yang Kai began to absorb the energy from the Yang attribute pills. In War City, there were 8 above Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters monitoring the situation, which made Yang Kai realize that if he didn't quickly break through to the Immortal Ascension Boundary, sooner or later his secret would be discovered by these 8 old men. Right now, he was Yuan Qi Boundary 8th stage, only 2 minor realms away from the Immortal Ascension Boundary. It took Yang Kai an entire day to fully absorb all the Yang attribute pills. He could clearly feel that the Yang liquid in his dantian and the Yuan Qi in his meridians had become thicker and purer. The incense burner he hadn't used for a long time was taken out again and lit up beside him. While circulating his true Yang secret art, Yang Kai didn't hesitate to use his spiritual energy to spy on the mysteries of the true alchemic way. The incense from the incense burner could suppress the speed of the true Yang secret art's circulation. If this continued, the true Yang secret art would adapt to this huge pressure. Once the incense burner was gone, its circulation speed would naturally increase, displaying great benefits when facing an enemy. Using his spiritual energy to spy on the true alchemic way was one of the best ways to cultivate one's soul. Chapter 442. The true alchemic way was too broad and profound. Not only did it contain a variety of magical alchemy spirit arrays, but it also contained the experiences of countless alchemy grandmasters. This knowledge was enough for Yang Kai to use for a lifetime, but if he wanted to extract this information from the true alchemic way, he would have to consume a lot of spiritual energy. When one's divine sense was being replenished, it would naturally improve rapidly. Time passed quickly, and with a huge amount of materials as a backup, Yang Kai's cultivation and spiritual energy were growing at an obvious rate. Every morning, when the sun rose, Yang Kai would practice his unyielding golden skeleton secret art. At the same time, he would take a drop of myriad drug liquid. After such a long period of accumulation, the myriad drug liquid's effect of cleansing his body had begun to show itself, allowing Yang Kai to cultivate faster and more efficiently than before. Moreover, this effect would accompany him throughout his life, providing endless benefits. As his strength improved in the future, the effects of taking the myriad drug liquid every day would only grow. This was a snowball effect. War City, East Side, eldest brother Yang Wei's house. After a few days of secluded cultivation, Yang Wei came out for a walk and happened to see Meng Shanyi of the Meng family standing in his courtyard, seemingly waiting for him to come out. Meng Shanyi was pacing back and forth, his brow furrowed, seemingly lost in thought. "Brother Meng." Yang Wei greeted. "Eldest young master." Meng Shanyi heard his name and smiled happily, hurrying over, his eyes immediately lighting up. Eldest young master seems to have made a breakthrough in his secret art. Yang Wei nodded gently and said lightly, "Ian. I'm about to break through to the Immortal Ascension Boundary 2nd stage, probably in the next few days." Meng Shanyi couldn't help feeling admiration and envy. Although he was the eldest son of the Meng family and his aptitude was quite good, he was still only at the 9th stage of Yuan Qi. Although he was about to break through to the immortal ascension boundary, he still couldn't compare with the Yang family's eldest brother Yong Wei. Among the younger generation of the central capital, there were quite a few geniuses. Meng Shanyi sighed in his heart. The Liu family's Liu Qingyaro didn't need to be mentioned. The Qiu family's first young lady Qiu Yimeng had also broken through to the immortal ascension boundary first stage 2 months ago. Although the immortal ascension boundary second stage wasn't, all of them had reached that level. This made Meng Shanyi feel a sense of crisis. Although he was the young master of the Meng family and it didn't matter if his strength was not that great, which man didn't want to become stronger? "What are you doing here?" Yong Wei asked. "It's like this, young master. Since you came to War City, you've been in retreat. It's now the 4th day, I should report to you about the situation outside." Yong Wei gently nodded, turned around, and said, "Let's talk inside." Inside the room, the two sat across from each other at the table. Yong Wei was silent, quietly listening to what happened on the first night of the inheritance war in his third brother Yang Tai's house. His expression remained unchanged, as if everything was within his expectations. However, when he heard that Yang Kai had not only snatched the flag, but also snatched the person, he was shocked. His eyes couldn't help but narrow slightly, emitting a trace of light, and a trace of surprise finally appeared on his face. Meng Shanyi smiled bitterly. "Your family's 9th brother's actions are too unexpected. Yang Kang and Yang Ying tried to steal a chicken but ended up losing a lot of rice. Furthermore, he seems to have released Yang Tai back to the central capital instead of exchanging him for supplies." "He did that?" Yong Wei asked in surprise. "That's why I said his actions were too unexpected." Meng Shanyi shook his head. "In any case, I couldn't see what his next move would be. Originally, I thought he would take advantage of the situation and capture Yang Quan in one fell swoop while everyone else was recuperating, but he hasn't done anything for several days now. If he was smart enough, he wouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have done that." Yang Wei's eyes flashed. At first I didn't understand, but after thinking about it, Yang Kai obviously doesn't want to attract too much attention, so he's biding his time." Meng Shanyi's face showed a touch of admiration. "He sees things much further than I do. Don't underestimate my 9th brother. I feel like there's something wrong with him." Yong Wei frowned, recalling the first time he saw him in front of the Elder Hall. His Yuan Qi couldn't help fluctuating. "First young master, you mean, 9th brother may be his biggest enemy, even stronger than second brother. How is that possible?" Meng Shanyi's face was filled with disbelief, seemingly thinking that Yong Wei was overestimating Yang Kai. Although many people have sought refuge with him these past few days, all the young lords have done the same. "First young master, the friends you've made over the past few years have all gathered here. They all want to see you." Yong Wei nodded gently. "I'll arrange for them later." Meng Shanyi couldn't help asking with some excitement, "First young master, are you planning to take action?" "What action?" Yong Wei looked at him suspiciously. Meng Shanyi frowned. "First young master, don't you want to attack Yang Quan? Yang Kai isn't willing to attract too much attention right now. Besides you, everyone else is recuperating, so this is a rare opportunity. As long as first young master brings your friends over, I don't think Yang Quan will resist. After all, you are the eldest young master, you have prestige in the hearts of your brothers." Yang Quan only had an immortal ascension boundary 8th stage blood warrior while his mother's family was only a second-class force. Such a defensive force would be vulnerable in front of the current Yong Wei. "If I go and attack 8th brother now, I'm sure I can win." Yong Wei didn't refute Meng Shanyi's point of view. "Even if he resists, he won't be able to." "Then why is first young master hesitating?" Meng Shanyi was confused. "If there isn't much benefit, I won't do it." Yong Wei shook his head. "This topic ends here. When it's time to attack, I will. Brother Meng, accompany me to meet those people now." Saying so, Yong Wei stood up. Although Meng Shanyi was depressed, he didn't say anything more, but how could defeating Yang Quan not have any benefits? Not to mention that Yang Quan himself and his flag could be taken to the family to exchange for materials. After defeating him, he could also collect his current support. How could there not be any benefits? At this moment, 300 kilometers away from War City, in the wilderness, two dignified and enchanting women were walking while laughing. Beside these two women, there were two pure young girls. One of them was more lively, calling out Auntie Xiong, Auntie Lan, and talking about interesting topics, causing the two women to laugh again and again. On the other hand, the other girl was very quiet. This girl was covered with a veil, making people unable to see her true appearance. However, her pair of beautiful eyes were bright and clear, making people infatuated. On her forehead, there was a light blue gem, making her look even more elegant and refined. She was like a fairy who had descended to the mortal world and didn't eat the world of mortals. When she looked towards the direction of War City, the eyes of this veiled young girl were filled with expectation and joy, as well as a hint of shyness. Recalling the figure from her memories, it seemed that her cheeks hidden under the veil blushed slightly. A young girl in love was the most moving. At this moment, she was at the most beautiful moment of her life. Even the two beautiful women who saw her couldn't help feeling a little stunned. The more lively young girl suddenly rushed over and grabbed the arm of the veiled young girl, giggling, "Is elder sister Xia thinking about my cousin?" Xia Ningchang heard this and became extremely shy, her delicate earlobes instantly turning completely red as she stammered, "No, no, don't speak nonsense." "Heh." Dong Qing-yang laughed wickedly, "You're still denying it. When I mention him, your face becomes even redder." "I'm blushing." Xia Ningchang couldn't help but stretch out her hands and cover her cheeks, but then she suddenly realized that she was still wearing her veil, so even if she was blushing, no one would be able to see it. However, her cheeks really were burning hot. "Look at how nervous you are." Dong Qing-yang didn't give up and continued to ask, "Elder sister Xia, what do you like about my cousin?" "From what I can see, he's just ordinary, nothing special." "I don't like him." Xia Ningchang wrinkled her nose and flatly denied. "Then why did you leave Hidden Cloud Peak as soon as you heard that he was participating in the inheritance war?" "Master can't bear to part with you. If you leave, no one will be able to discuss the alchemic way with him. I'm his little senior sister. A senior sister taking care of a junior brother is a matter of course." Xia Ningchang bit her red lips and replied in a low voice, seemingly thinking that this reason was too far-fetched and that even she couldn't believe it. On the side, Auntie Xiong and Auntie Lan overheard the conversation between the two girls and couldn't help chuckling. Towards Xia Ningchang, this clever, quiet, and innocent girl, these two beautiful women were very fond of her. The two of them had no children in their lives, so during the few months they spent on Hidden Cloud Peak, they almost treated her as their own daughter. Xia Ningchang liked young Kai. This was something they both knew and approved of. They both felt that in this world, only a young lord from the Yang family was worthy of Xia Ningchang and had the ability to protect her. "You really don't like him?" Dong Qing-yang asked mischievously. Xia Ningchang reluctantly nodded. "That's great. I'll be able to marry my cousin in the future." Dong Qing-yang giggled, her words shattering the heaven and earth. "Ah!" Xia Ningchang was shocked as she stared at Dong Qing-yang dumbfoundedly, her beautiful eyes filled with shock. "Good, Qing-yang, don't tease your elder sister Xia. If you continue to tease her, she'll cry." Auntie Xiong couldn't stand it anymore and pulled Dong Qing-yang to her side, glaring at her for a moment before whispering to Xia Ningchang, "Don't listen to her nonsense, she's just lying to you." Xia Ningchang nodded gently and smiled. "Sister Dong wants to marry junior brother, it's fine. You two are cousins, if you really become husband and wife, then you'll be even closer." This time it was Dong Qing-yang's turn to be dumbfounded, quickly waving her hands, I don't want to marry someone like my smelly cousin. The person I want to marry is an ordinary man who will only love me for the rest of his life, only then will I be happy." Auntie Xiong was also secretly surprised by Xia Ningchang's magnanimity. This girl clearly cared about young Kai very much. Her longing for young Kai on Hidden Cloud Peak was heart-wrenching, but when she heard someone wanted to marry him, not only did she not object, she even smiled. What's going on? Chapter 443. Xia Ningchang obviously didn't want to continue discussing this topic, her brow furrowing slightly as she softly said, "Auntie Xiong, this time Medicine King's Valley has dispatched so many people, isn't that a bit inappropriate? As she spoke, she glanced back. Behind these 4 women was Old Man Meng. Treasurer Meng's face was filled with worry as he sighed. When he thought about seeing that little bastard Yang Kai again, he couldn't help feeling sorry for his precious disciple. But his disciple was wholeheartedly devoted to him, and Meng Wu Wei could only sigh helplessly. When it came to matters of love, Meng Wu Wei couldn't control it even if he wanted to. Thinking of this helplessness, he couldn't help but squeeze out a smile that was uglier than crying. Behind Treasurer Meng was a large group of people, all of them wearing white robes. There were at least 30 of them. Of these people, the strongest was Qin Ziyi, a trivial immortal ascension boundary second stage cultivator, while the weakest was only at the separation and reunion peak. If such a group of people were to be pulled out into battle, they could only be described as unable to withstand a single blow. However, these people were all alchemists from Medicine King's Valley. Even if their strength was lacking, they were still respectable existences. No matter where they went, no one dared to take the initiative to attack them. Alchemists were also divided into grades, corresponding to the grade of precious treasures: ordinary grade, earth grade, heaven grade, mysterious grade. Each grade was also divided into 3 grades: high, medium, and low. Alchemists generally had obvious symbols on their chests to show their rank. Each petal corresponded to a grade: gold, silver, and white, corresponding to high, medium, and low. Through the embroidery on these alchemists' robes, it was easy to see what level they were. These alchemists from Medicine King's Valley all had flower petals embroidered on their chests. At the very least, they had 2 petals, while half of them had 3 petals. Among them, Qin Ziyi had 4 petals. 4 petals was the symbol of mysterious grade. In the entire Great Han Dynasty, there were only a few dozen alchemists who were qualified to wear 4 petals. A quarter of them were concentrated in Medicine King's Valley. Those who had 3 petals embroidered on their chests were heaven-grade alchemists. Those who could easily refine heaven-grade pills and 2 petals were earth-grade alchemists. Martial uncle, what orders do you have? When Qin Ziyi saw that Xia Ningchang had turned around, he hurried forward and asked her respectfully. He thought that Xia Ningchang wanted him to do something. Xia Ningchang couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. Senior Qin, please don't call me that. I'm younger than you. How can I bear that title? Qin Ziyi shook his head. That won't do. Since Martial Uncle Xiao has already informed Medicine King's Valley, he will treat you as an equal. No matter how old you are still my martial uncle. Xia Ningchang could not help but smile bitterly. He did not know what to say. Originally, when she heard that Yang Kai was going to participate in the inheritance war, she just wanted to rush to the central capital with Meng Wu Wei to help, but she hadn't expected that Xiao Fu Sheng would suddenly give her an order. He had gathered 30 Medicine King's Valley disciples and brought them along. Xia Ningchang had stayed in the Hidden Cloud Peak for a long time, so only the people of the Hidden Cloud Peak knew about her attainments in alchemy. Alchemists were a group of proud and aloof people. Qin Ziyi and the others originally looked down on Xia Ningchang, but after hearing Xiao Fu Sheng's words, all of them were stunned. Xia Ningchang's attainments in alchemy were not inferior to his own. In fact, Xia Ningchang was certain that in time, he would reach a height that Xiao Fu Sheng had not yet reached. Qin Ziyi naturally did not believe this. Who in this world could compare with Grandmaster Xiao? Relying on the fact that he had just been promoted to mysterious grade alchemist a few days ago, he confidently competed with Xia Ningchang. The result was a crushing defeat. Seeing this, Qin Ziyi sincerely admired him and no longer dared to show the slightest disrespect. Alchemists were like this, they did not scheme against others. If you wanted them to respect you, you had to conquer them with your alchemy skills. To a certain extent, alchemists were a group of relatively upright people. It was not easy for the disciples of Medicine King's Valley to see Xiao Fu Sheng and learn alchemy from him, but now a top-level alchemist on par with Xiao Fu Sheng had suddenly appeared, and one so young at that, naturally he would be respected. These 30 people, from their initial reluctance to follow Xia Ningchang, now took the initiative to follow her and learn the alchemic way from her. However, Xia Ningchang was well aware that Xiao Fu Sheng had spent a great deal of effort to recruit 30 alchemists to follow her, and had even said that he would treat her as an equal. On the surface, he wanted these people to become apprentices to her, but in reality, he was helping Yang Kai in disguise. It's none of your business, Ning Chang is just talking to me. Aunt Xiong waved her hand. Qin Ziyi didn't complain and immediately retreated, leading the 30 alchemists behind him. Medicine King's Valley has never participated in the inheritance war before. Now that it has rashly participated, I'm afraid it will be criticized. Xia Ning Chang said worriedly. Aunt Xiong smiled and softly said, "Don't worry, no one is qualified to comment on Medicine King's Valley's actions. However, Grandmaster really cares about Yang Kai. If not, how could he have used the Elder Token to transfer 30 people from Medicine King's Valley? He even asked me and your Aunt Lan to come along because he was afraid that Yang Kai would have some kind of accident." Xia Ning Chang nodded silently. How could Xiao Fu Sheng not care about Yang Kai? Yang Kai had twice asked her and Lu Sai to bring him 2 sets of extremely valuable alchemy spirit arrays, and during this time the Grandmaster had been immersed in studying them, even forgetting to eat and sleep. For the Grandmaster, these 2 sets of spirit arrays were more fascinating than any other treasure, so how could he not care about Yang Kai's safety? What Medicine King's Valley had remained neutral for thousands of years? What Medicine King's Valley did not participate in worldly disputes? In front of these 2 sets of spirit arrays, nothing could stop him. He had even argued with the Valley Master of Medicine King's Valley over this matter, almost quarreling with him. Thinking of the Grandmaster's willfulness and protectiveness, Xia Ning Chang couldn't help smiling. After walking for a while, the sky gradually darkened and the group stopped to rest by a riverside. Looking in the direction of War City, Xia Ning Chang's mood fluctuated. Tomorrow, he would see his junior brother. What should he say first? For a time, Xia Ning Chang fell into contemplation. Yang Kai's mansion, inside the room. An incense burner rose and the fragrance filled the entire room. The true Yang secret art seemed to be slowly circulating under the pressure of a great mountain. Yang Kai didn't ask, instead focusing on the mysteries conveyed by the true alchemic way, comprehending the complex truths of heaven and earth contained within, his state of mind unconsciously improving. As his understanding of the true alchemic way became deeper and deeper, Yang Kai also realized its preciousness, his expression constantly changing, sometimes shocked, sometimes excited, sometimes confused, all kinds of different expressions. After an unknown amount of time, Yang Kai, who was immersed in the true alchemic way, was completely unaware of the situation in the outside world. His whole body glowed with a strange light as he focused wholeheartedly on comprehending and understanding. All kinds of alchemy grandmaster's insights and experiences were also digested into his mind. A brand new picture seemed to slowly unfold in his mind, and through prying into the true alchemic way, Yang Kai gained a deeper understanding of the martial Tao. There was a kind of restlessness in his heart, and he couldn't help wanting to experiment with alchemy himself. He wanted to see how the first pill he refined would bloom with a brilliant light. But when he remembered what Xiao Fu Sheng had once said, Yang Kai forced himself to suppress this desire. Until he reached the immortal ascension boundary, he couldn't perform alchemy. Right now, Yang Kai's goal was to break through to the immortal ascension boundary as soon as possible. Once he reached the immortal ascension boundary, there would be enough time for him to begin practicing alchemy. In order to improve a cultivator's strength, not only did they need to rely on the accumulation of yuan qi, but also the tempering of their physical body, as well as their own comprehension and cognition, was the key to making a breakthrough. Therefore, when a cultivator encountered a bottleneck, they would not choose to enter secluded cultivation but would instead walk around casually. Perhaps they would encounter some special opportunity and miraculously break through their bottleneck. Yang Kai faintly felt that exploring the mysteries of the true alchemic way would not only increase the strength of his spiritual energy, but would also bring great benefits to his cultivation. Immersed in this situation, Yang Kai didn't know how long it was before he gradually woke up. Opening his eyes, Yang Kai saw that his true Yang secret art was still slowly circulating, but it was undoubtedly much faster than it had been at the beginning. The yuan qi in his body had already adapted to the current pressure, and as time passed, it would only become faster and faster. Moreover, his own yuan qi 8th stage cultivation seemed to have soared by a large margin. Gently exhaling, Yang Kai felt a little happy. Standing up, Yang Kai put away the incense burner into the black book space and condensed a stream of pure yuan qi at his fingertips, slowly rotating, creating a huge attractive force that absorbed all the fragrance in the room. The incense burner's incense was too overbearing. Apart from himself who possessed the unyielding golden skeleton, Yang Kai estimated that no one below the immortal ascension boundary would be able to withstand it. If one of the palace's maidservants walked in and inhaled it, they would likely immediately die. Opening the door, Yang Kai stepped out. He had been in seclusion for a few days now, so the people Chen Shueshu had mentioned should have already arrived. As the host, he should show up and welcome them. Walking through the winding corridor, halfway through, Yang Kai suddenly saw Lan Chudai and Luo Xiaoman talking to each other. These two women standing there were quite the eye-catching sight. Their figures were the same, and they were equally strong. Their twin peaks seemed to exude a sense of temptation, as if they were trying to suck him in. The two of them obviously had a lot of common topics to talk about. Senior Sister Lan, Luo Xiaoman. Yang Kai stepped forward and greeted them. Lan Chudai turned her head and smiled happily, but Luo Xiaoman, on the other hand, was so scared that her face went pale. "Are you so afraid of me?" Yang Kai grinned as he looked at Luo Xiaoman with interest. The latter's eyes flashed as she tried to hide, but there was nowhere for her to hide, so she couldn't help but stare at Lan Chudai imploringly. "Junior brother, don't bully her." Lan Chudai stared at Yang Kai for a moment before suddenly taking out a handkerchief and wiping his face, explaining with a smile, "It's a little dirty, junior brother, you should wash it properly. You are now a person of status." Yang Kai allowed her to act so intimately, his lips curling up slightly as he smiled meaningfully. "Senior Sister Lan is considerate, I will pay attention." Chapter 444. Saying so, he turned to Luo Xiaoman and smiled. "Tell me, why are you so afraid of me? I don't think I've done anything to you, right?" Luo Xiaoman blinked her long eyelashes, lowered her head, and whispered, "I don't know, in any case, I'm just afraid of you." "How afraid are you?" Yang Kai took a step forward. Luo Xiaoman screamed, "Don't come any closer." Yang Kai was stunned and quickly stopped, fearing that if he took another step, this girl would faint from fright. "Forget it, you two can continue chatting." Feeling a bit bored, he strode away. The people from Reflecting Moon sect had already arrived. Not only that, but all the sects Chen Shueshu had mentioned before were also present. They were already on the road, and after receiving Chen Shueshu's message, they had traveled even faster. These people, under Qiu Yimeng's arrangement, had each found a courtyard to settle down in. Learning that Yang Kai had come out of seclusion, they all rushed to the main hall to meet him. Water Moon Hall's Feng Qian Hen, Pure Heart Palace's Wu Fang, 10,000 Flower Palace's Han Xiao Qi, Yi Han, Liu Qing Yu, and Hua Ruo Yin were all present. In addition to Chen Shueshu and Su Xiao Yu, almost all the people Yang Kai had met in that isolated world were present. After not seeing each other for such a long time, these leaders of their respective sects naturally had their own opportunities, and their strength had improved significantly. However, after realizing how strong Yang Kai was, this group of people could only smile bitterly and sigh that no matter how hard they worked, they would never be able to catch up to Yang Kai. Back in that isolated world, each of them had surpassed Yang Kai by at least a great realm, but now, Yang Kai had surpassed them. What's more, Yang Kai, a Yuan Qi 8th stage cultivator, couldn't be compared to an ordinary Yuan Qi 8th stage cultivator. As time passed, this gap would only grow bigger and bigger. Exchanging pleasantries, the main hall was lively. Unfortunately, Yi Qing Sai and Zhu Bie's Azura sect are overseas. Zimo's Sen Luo Temple is also in another country, otherwise we would all be here now. Chen Shueshu sighed. Everyone couldn't help but reveal a trace of nostalgia. Back then, in that exotic land, everyone had gone through life and death together, so they naturally had a friendship. "The future is long," Yang Kai chuckled, then suddenly turned his head to the left and asked, "How is Li Xin Yuan doing right now?" Back then, in the exotic land. In the end, there were two survivors from the Palace of Conscience, one was Wu Fang, and the other was Li Xin Yuan. However, the latter's luck was rather bad, as the Tianlang dynasty cultivator's soul-controlling insect drilled through his dantian, crippling his cultivation. Hearing Yang Kai ask about this person, everyone fell silent and looked over with concern. Zhuo Fang's expression darkened as he said with a wry smile, ever since he came back that time, Brother Li seemed to be quite optimistic on the surface. However, only he knew the bitterness in his heart. My master also went to the Medicine King Valley to inquire and found out that there is a kind of medicinal pill called the Heaven Mending Pill, which has a chance of repairing damaged dantian. It was just that this pill required a lot of materials, and its grade was also very high. Very few people were able to refine it. My master has been collecting materials all this time, but there was an accident in Medicine King's Valley a few days ago, so now is a busy time. My master is not accepting requests from outside cultivators to refine this pill, so we can only wait for a few more days. Since there is a medicinal pill that can repair his dantian, that should be easy. Yang Kai nodded. When the time comes, I'll help you find someone to refine it. Brother Yang, do you have connections? Zhuo Fang was overjoyed and immediately realized that the person in front of him was not the same Yang Kai he had met in the exotic land, but rather a direct descendant of the Yang family. I know some people, they'll probably arrive in a few days. Yang Kai smiled lightly, thinking of a gentle and quiet face. Qiu Yimeng suddenly smiled and interjected, Yang Kai, do you know how many supporters you have now? Less than 10, right? Yang Kai glanced at her. Qiu Yimeng snorted lightly and casually said, Qiu family, Hua family, Xiong family, Dong family, Purple Fern Valley, Reflecting Moon Sect, Pure Heart Palace, Soaring Feather Pavilion, and 10,000 Flower Palace. There are a total of 9. You know them. Yang Kai nodded. Although he had been in retreat for the past few days, he still had a rough idea. What's wrong? Is there something wrong? There are many you don't know. Qiu Yimeng smiled. Many supporters I don't know? Yang Kai chuckled. That's interesting. Tell me, what is it that I don't know? It just so happens that I need to report to you, Master, that Tianyuan City has also sent some people to deliver things and a group of people. Tianyuan City? Yang Kai was stunned. Qiu Yimeng shook her head. You didn't blackmail them and then forget about them, right? The first-class force that Lan Jiang belongs to? Yang Kai suddenly remembered that when they were attacked on the way back to the central capital, not only did the Lu family suffer an unexpected calamity, but Tianyuan City was also targeted by Yang Kai. However, Yang Kai had not deliberately blackmailed it, nor did he send a letter to it. Now it seemed that the person in charge of Tianyuan City was quite clever, sending people and supplies without a word. Qiu Yimeng nodded. I've seen the people who came, and they're not bad. The young man leading them is the son of Tianyuan City's city lord and has a very gentle temperament. He has been here for 2 days now and his subordinates have been very honest. As long as they aren't as blind as Lu Song. Yang Kai didn't care, you can decide for yourself. If they are useful, keep them, if not, send them away. Qiu Yimeng's eyes lit up as she secretly rejoiced. It seemed that Yang Kai was ready to give her some authority. She couldn't help secretly rejoicing that she had temporarily left the Qiu family to help him, otherwise, if she had gone to Yang Shen's side, she would have only been an ally. However, the people from Tianyuan City have come for some reason, so in the future, don't accept people you don't know. Yang Kai said. I know. Qiu Yimeng was very happy. Besides Tianyuan City, is there any other force I don't know about? Yang Kai asked again. Qiu Yimeng's expression became dignified as she quickly said, the Duanmu family, I don't know if you've heard of it. Duanmu family? Yang Kai frowned thoughtfully. I seem to have heard of it somewhere, but I can't remember where. What kind of relationship does this family have with me? They actually came to me to seek refuge. This Duanmu family is the family of your third brother Yang Tai's mother. Do you understand now? Qiu Yimeng smiled lightly. My third brother? Yang Kai was surprised. The Duanmu family didn't send many people, only 5, but one of them was an Immortal Ascension Boundary 8th stage, one Immortal Ascension Boundary 7th stage, one Immortal Ascension Boundary 6th stage, and 2 Immortal Ascension Boundary 5th stage. The 5 people who survived that night? Yang Kai's expression changed slightly. That night's battle could be said to have been extremely tragic for the Du and Mu family. There were a total of 30 to 40 people, but in the end, only 5 of them were able to survive the chaotic battle. It was obvious that these 5 people were not easy to deal with, so it was understandable that they had such a high level of cultivation. At that time, Yang Kang and Yang Ying had led their forces to chase after Yang Kai, so they didn't have time to deal with these 5 people. Otherwise, according to the rules of the inheritance war, they could have tried to persuade these 5 people to join their camp. However, even if they really did so, there shouldn't be much hope. After all, so many people from the Du and Mu family had died. Yes, it's them. Qiu Yimeng stared deeply at Yang Kai, her red lips exuding a seductive luster. Tell me honestly, when you let your third brother go that night, did you have this plan in mind? Glancing over at her, Yang Kai slowly shook his head. You think too much of me, don't you? I let my third brother go because I wanted to. There was no need to think too much about it. Hearing this, Qiu Yimeng couldn't help letting out a sigh of relief and patted her chest. Fortunately, you aren't that shrewd, otherwise I really wouldn't have the confidence to face you in the future. Listening to the Qiu family's first young lady's ridicule, everyone present couldn't help feeling slightly moved. Some of them couldn't believe that the current Yang Kai could bring so much pressure to the world-renowned Qiu Yimeng. But in any case, your move is quite exquisite. Qiu Yimeng smiled. The fact that these 5 people came to join you should have been instructed by Yang Tai. Yang Kai nodded silently. He hadn't expected his third brother would also do such a thing. He couldn't help smiling slightly. So, you now have the support of 11 forces. Qiu Yimeng's voice was slightly excited. There weren't many things that could make the Qiu family so excited. Of these 11 forces, 2 were super forces. Of the remaining 9, only Reflecting Moon Sect was a second-class force, the rest were all first-class. From a few days ago when no one was interested in him, with no hope of victory, even 90% of the people were certain that Yang Kai wouldn't be able to survive the first night, to now having 11 major forces, Yang Kai's mansion's development and gathering speed could be described as astonishing. Such connections and charisma were second to none among the Yang family's direct descendant. Qiu Yimeng seemed to be able to see the dawn of victory. Restraining her expression, the Qiu family's first young lady solemnly said, "Right now, the support you have is greater than any of your brothers. According to the information I've inquired, only your second brother Yang Zhao has 20 big and small forces to help him. However, most of his helpers are from second-class and third-class sects, so although their numbers are slightly greater, in terms of quality, they can't compare to yours. However, as time goes by, your advantage will become smaller and smaller, and you may even be surpassed by them. You need to be mentally prepared." "I know," Yang Kai grinned confidently, "not all of them are here yet." Qiu Yimeng's beautiful eyes flashed as she lightly snorted. "You'll have to tell me all about it someday, otherwise, I really don't know how many helpers you've hidden away." Seeing Qiu Yimeng's gentle appearance, everyone couldn't help feeling shocked, their expressions becoming playful, as if they had discovered something extraordinary. Yi Han of 10,000 Flower Palace even laughed. "Young Lady Qiu, if you want to subdue Yang Kai, wouldn't that be a piece of cake?" "He doesn't like me," Qiu Yimeng replied half-truthfully, quietly observing Yang Kai's reaction. Yang Kai grinned wickedly and said, "I'll go to your room tonight, let's have a good chat." Qiu Yimeng's beautiful face couldn't help paling slightly. His heart still hasn't changed. Han Xiaoqi spat disdainfully. Back in that isolated world, all of her women, except for Su Xiaoyu, had been taken advantage of by Yang Kai. The past was still vivid in her mind. How could Han Xiaoqi forget? Chapter 445. Perhaps because of her status as the great senior sister, Han Xiaoqi's temperament was cold, Yi Han was innocent and lovely, Liu Qing'ayu was charming, and Hua Ruo Yin was quiet and well-behaved. Staring at Han Xiaoqi, Yang Kai seemed to find a bit of Su Yang's shadow in her, his sharp eyes inadvertently becoming soft. The two of them were both great senior sisters in their respective sects, so there were some similarities between them, but Su Yang was undoubtedly colder than Han Xiaoqi. Her coldness was reserved for outsiders, but in front of Yang Kai, her ice would only melt like snow in early spring. Han Xiaoqi's neck flushed red, and under Yang Kai's burning gaze, she couldn't bear it and glared fiercely at Yang Kai. whispering, "I'm telling the truth, why are you looking at me like that?" Qiu Yimeng couldn't help snorting, secretly gnashing her teeth, thinking that all men were bad things, seeing a beautiful woman and becoming lustful. The tenderness in Yang Kai's eyes and the deep affection on his face, as long as one wasn't blind, anyone could see it. None of the people present were children, how could they not understand? "Yang Kai, you don't have to be so direct." Zhuo Fang laughed dryly. "Although senior sister Han is beautiful and we all want to take a few more glances at her, we can only sneak a peek. Why are you being so obvious?" Han Xiaoqi was already feeling a little uncomfortable being stared at by Yang Kai, so hearing this, her face reddened and she glared at Zhuo Fang. "You're not a good thing either, you're just jackals of the same tribe." Zhuo Fang suddenly laughed. Yang Kai didn't answer, nor did he explain, the strange look in his eyes gradually converging, becoming extremely calm. Immediately, turning his head, he looked out of the hall. Deng deng deng. The sound of hurried footsteps rang out. Dong Dong's face showed a trace of anxiety, and after coming in, he didn't greet the others, instead hurriedly saying, "Yang Kai, something's happened, you have to take people out to see what's going on." "What's the matter?" Yang Kai frowned and asked. The others also couldn't help wearing dignified expressions. In the inheritance war, there was always an unexpected situation. Since they had chosen to come to Yang Kai's government to help him, they would naturally be prepared to fight at any moment. Qing Yang's group has arrived in War City. But he was stopped in the city. "They're here." Yang Kai's expression shook as a look of joy appeared on his face, not daring to delay. Hurrying out, he shouted, "Ying Ju, come with me." Without the protection of a blood warrior, appearing in broad daylight was a very dangerous thing to do. No, you have to mobilize at least half of the support you have now. You still don't know the situation over there. There was some cold sweat on Fatty Dong's forehead. It was obvious that when he received the news, he was also shocked. Yang Kai looked at him in surprise. He nodded and said, "Then the Hua family, Xiong family, Dong family, and Duanmu family will follow me. Qiu Yimeng, you stay." The Qiu family's first young lady replied in a low voice. "What about us?" Han Xiaoqi asked. "Everyone should also stay and rest, this time it shouldn't be a big deal." Saying so, Yang Kai and Dong Qinghan hurriedly rushed out. As they rushed out, Dong Qinghan blew a loud whistle and in the next moment, the sound of clothes fluttering could be heard from inside the mansion. When Yang Kai arrived at the door, Hua Stars and Xiong Tian Xiao had already led a group of people to wait outside. Among them were the 5 Soul Ascension Boundary Masters Yang Kai had met that night. After seeing Yang Kai, they nodded lightly. "Greetings, young Lord Kai, many thanks." Yang Kai nodded to the 5 Duanmu family masters. "Yang Kai, what happened?" Hua Stars asked curiously. This was the first time Yang Kai had gathered people to take the initiative to attack, so he was inevitably curious. "I'll tell you as we walk, I don't know." Yang Kai responded casually. A group of people rushed out in a grandiose manner. How could Qingyang be stopped by someone? As they hurried along, Yang Kai had time to ask. Although she was Xiao Fu Sheng's disciple, after all, she had only studied the alchemic way for a short time. The fact that she could refine earth-grade pills was already quite impressive. Moreover, with Xiao Fu Sheng's method of training his disciples, Dong Qingyang probably hadn't even started learning alchemy yet. Such an alchemist didn't seem to have any value in being stopped. Dong Qinghan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If it was just Qingyang alone, I'm afraid there wouldn't be a problem. But do you know how many people she brought with her? 30 people. Dong Qinghan said seriously, a total of 30 alchemists from Medicine King's Valley, half of whom are heaven-grade alchemists while one is mysterious grade. What? Yang Kai was shocked. Even the always frivolous stars who couldn't help gaping. Why would people from Medicine King's Valley come to participate in the inheritance war? The Hua family young lord almost thought he had misheard and couldn't believe his ears. Dong Qinghan shook his head. "I don't know the specific situation, you'll have to ask Yang Kai. They came here this time to seek refuge with Yang Kai." As he spoke, Dong Qinghan stared at Yang Kai meaningfully, obviously having some speculations in his heart. Hua was shocked. "Yang Kai, Where did you get so much power to mobilize those idiots from Medicine King's Valley? That group of people's eyes are on top of their heads. Even this young lord isn't worthy of their attention. How are you so powerful? Yang Kai frowned and ignored Hua Star's Hua, his heart filled with anxiety. Dong Qing had come, so his little senior sister must have come as well. In War City, she had been stopped by his brothers and sisters. If his little senior sister had an accident because of this, Yang Kai's eyes gradually became cold as his yuan qi surged madly. Dong Qing and Hua Star's Hua, who were following behind Yang Kai, couldn't help feeling startled, turning their heads in horror. They found that Yang Kai's aura had suddenly changed, becoming violent and filled with a faint bloody smell. This kind of murderous aura gave them goosebumps and they couldn't help distancing themselves from him. After walking a short distance though, Yang Kai's eyes suddenly flashed as he turned to Xiong Tian Xiao and said, "Second young master Xiong, don't follow me." Xiong Tian Xiao didn't say a word and just stared at Yang Kai, waiting for him to continue. Waving his hand, Yang Kai whispered a few words in Xiong Tian Xiao's ear, nodding slightly to him. Yang Kai then turned to the 5 immortal ascension boundary masters from the Duan Mu family and cupped his fists. Several seniors should also follow second young master Xiong. Qiu Yimeng will know what to do. The 5 Duan Mu family masters nodded in unison. Xiong Tian Xiao then led his own people and the 5 Duan Mu family masters back. "What are you doing?" Hua Star's Hua looked puzzled. Yang Kai frowned. "I didn't know the situation was like this before, but now that I know, naturally I need to make some arrangements, otherwise I'm afraid we won't be able to bring those people back." "They dare attack Medicine King's Valley's people?" Hua Star's Hua stared at him. Extraordinary times require extraordinary treatment. Yang Kai took a deep breath and calmly said, "If it were me, I would rather offend Medicine King's Valley than allow such a large number of people to help my enemy. Besides, they won't kill anyone, they'll just find a way to abduct Medicine King's Valley's people." Listening to him say this, Dong Qing and Hua Star's both nodded lightly. Not killing anyone meant they wouldn't offend Medicine King's Valley too much, so in the future they could prepare some gifts to apologize to Medicine King's Valley. In the middle of War City, the group of people from Medicine King's Valley wearing white robes had all stopped. Dong Qing and Xia Ningchang stood side by side while Auntie Xiong also stood nearby. From all directions, they were surrounded by several groups of people, and as time passed, more Yang family young lords were leading a large number of masters to arrive. Even though they were surrounded, the group from Medicine King's Valley still wore an arrogant expression, each of them showing contempt and arrogance. Auntie Xiong and Auntie Lan also wore calm expressions. Only Dong Qing was gnashing her teeth in anger while Xia Ningchang's beautiful eyes were filled with worry and anxiety, glancing towards the northwest from time to time. Apparently, that direction was the location of her junior brother's mansion. On the other hand, the several groups of people surrounding the group from Medicine King's Valley didn't show the slightest disrespect. Instead, all of them wore flattering smiles on their faces as they bowed respectfully. Yang Zhao, Yang Kang, Yang Shen, and Yang Ying stood in 4 different directions. In addition to Yang Kang's depressed expression, the other 3 were all glancing at each other vigilantly. Yang Kang was really quite depressed. When this group from Medicine King's Valley entered War City, they had to walk 1,000 meters past his house. By the time someone came to report that 30 alchemists in white robes had suddenly appeared in War City, it was already too late for Yang Kang to rush over. Although he had successfully stopped this group of people, the news had quickly spread, causing Yang Zhao, Yang Shen, and Yang Ying to also appear here. Now that all the young lords were urgently recruiting alchemists and artifact refiners, the appearance of such a large group of people in War City would inevitably attract attention. What made Yang Kang vomit blood though was that this group of alchemists was actually from Medicine King's Valley, completely incomparable to the alchemists from ordinary forces. The one leading this group was none other than the young valley master of Medicine King's Valley, Qin Ziyi. Although Qin Ziyi was more than 40 years old, his old man was still alive, so even in his middle age, he still carried the title of young valley master and was respected by the world. Qin Ziyi was also a famous figure in the alchemy world. His aptitude in alchemy was outstanding and it was not impossible for him to reach the same height as Xiao Fusheng. It was rumored that Qin Ziyi had recently passed the test of the Medicine King's Valley elders and successfully promoted to a mysterious grade low-rank alchemist. The 4-petal flower embroidered on his chest was the most conclusive evidence of this. Looking at the others, half of them were heaven-grade alchemists while the rest were earth-grade alchemists, all of them earth-grade top rank. These numerous petals dazzled the eyes of the Yang family young lords, causing them to become envious. With such a group of people, if they could pull them into their camp, how many pills would they be able to refine? How many people could they equip and enhance their strength with these pills? The 4 Yang family young lords silently calculated in their hearts and were shocked to find that as long as they could supply enough materials, with the help of this group of people, within 3 months, the strength of all the people they controlled would rise to a new level. In other words, with such a group of people, in the future of the inheritance war, they would have a considerable advantage. For a time, no matter who it was, the eyes of the 4 Yang family young lords turned red and their breathing suddenly became hot. The temptation of these more than 30 alchemists was no less than 30 naked beauties begging for love. Only their demeanor was too arrogant. R.S. Chapter 446. However, those who came from Medicine King's Valley were all like this, each one of them looking down on others and arrogant to the extreme. The 4 young lords didn't seem to care, instead all of them acting as if they were juniors. Brother Qin, Dong Qing Yang looked depressed. I told you to disguise yourselves before entering the city, but you didn't listen. Now you've been surrounded like monkeys, what are we supposed to do? It's fine. Qin Ziyi waved his hand indifferently. My Medicine King's Valley disciples won't dare attack them, I'll just send them away. Saying so, he swept his eyes around indifferently and coldly said, 4 young lords, by surrounding this Qin and others here, could it be you want to start a war with my Medicine King's Valley? Without any explanation, a big hat was placed on their heads, causing all of the Yang family young lords to be frightened and quickly waved their hands. We wouldn't dare, Senior Qin is too serious. Qin Ziyi coldly snorted, not long ago, the ash-grey cloud evil land invaded my Medicine King's Valley, burning my peaks and killing my valley disciples. Now you Yang family young lords don't even take us seriously. Good, good, the Yang family really is the central capital's first young lord, you've got guts. The 4 young lords all shrank their necks, not daring to answer. Not to mention you 4 juniors, even if Yang Yinghao saw this Qin, he wouldn't dare show the slightest disrespect. Qin Ziyi's tone was tough, his attitude was bad, and he refused to back down. Even though Yang Kang and the other young lords were depressed, they didn't dare show it on their faces, all of them squeezing out smiles and apologizing profusely. Although the 4 Yang family young lords had blocked this group of Medicine King's Valley young lords, they also wanted to pull them into their camp so they could work for them in alchemy, so how could they dare offend them? So in terms of attitude, each of them was more respectful than the other, allowing Qin Ziyi to ridicule them. None of them dared to speak back. Neither retorting nor backing down, all of them simply stood there with a smile on their faces, making it clear they didn't want to let them go. Yang Zhao waited for Qin Ziyi to finish venting before smiling. Respectfully saying, Senior Qin, these are guests from afar, if you aren't in a hurry, please come with us. Why don't you come to my house? As soon as they heard this, Yang Zhao, Yang Shen, and Yang Ying also hurriedly extended invitations in the most sincere and humble manner, all of them saying they would like to invite Qin Ziyi's group to rest. Drink some tea. Qin Ziyi coldly snorted and said, no need, I won't accept a reward without any effort. Get out of the way, we have to continue on our way. Yang Zhao and the others seemed to have been nailed to the ground, unable to move, their faces filled with confusion. The people from Medicine King's Valley were even more difficult to deal with than the average peak Immortal Ascension Boundary Master. If he couldn't fight them, it would be difficult to convince them with just words. What made Yang Zhao even more concerned was why this group of people had suddenly appeared in War City. Medicine King's Valley had never participated in the Inheritance War. Now that more than 30 people had suddenly appeared here, they couldn't help but ponder over the profound meaning contained within. If only there was a way to pique their interest. That way, even if he didn't invite them, they would probably take the initiative to go. But what could possibly pique their interest? He thought for a while. Yang Zhao's eyes lit up and he quickly said, Senior Qin, this junior has a matter he would like to ask. Is it convenient for Senior to discuss? Qin Ziyi was annoyed in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. He snorted and said, You're blocking my way, so I can't advance or retreat. Now tell me, is it convenient or not? Yang Zhao knew that Yang Kai wasn't feeling well and didn't continue to provoke him, instead continuing, This junior has been out for life experience for the past few years and once entered a remote mountain range by mistake. While resting at night, I suddenly heard the sound of a baby crying. Out of curiosity, I went to investigate and found a very strange world spirit treasure. It was a flower with a baby's face and was blooming with 7-colored light. Qin Ziyi's expression was extremely ugly, but when he heard Yang Zhao mention this, he couldn't help showing a trace of excitement, staring at him eagerly, seemingly forgetting his anger. And then, Qin Ziyi hurriedly asked, wanting to know what happened to that 7-colored flower. Seeing that Yang Zhao had successfully attracted Qin Ziyi's interest with the topic of spirit medicines, the other Yang family young lords couldn't help feeling annoyed, secretly hating their second brother for being so quick-witted. Knowing that they couldn't use force to deal with these people from Medicine King's Valley, bringing up such a topic was just what they wanted. All of them quickly began racking their brains, trying to recall what kind of precious treasures they had obtained over the years. That world spirit treasure also developed sentience. This junior wanted to reach out and pluck it, but unexpectedly it ran away. Idiot! Qin Ziyi cursed. Yang Zhao didn't show the slightest annoyance and instead continued with a smile. Yes, this junior was foolish and didn't think too much about it at the time, allowing it to escape. What was the final result? Did you manage to obtain that spirit flower? Yang Zhao smiled and nodded. Fortunately, this junior was fast enough to catch up with it and harvest it. After returning to the sect, I made some inquiries and found out that it was a black-grade high-rank 7-colored ghost nascent flower. This junior listened to the advice of an alchemist and sealed the 7-colored ghost nascent flower with a spirit array and raised it in a patch of sand. It was fine before, but a few days ago, it seemed to be showing signs of withering. I don't know what happened. Idiot, a complete idiot. Qin Ziyi flew into a rage, as if his wife had been taken advantage of, his face filled with anger. Who told you that the 7-colored ghost infant flower had to be raised in sand? Please enlighten me, Senior, Yang Zhao hurriedly asked. Qin Ziyi calmed his anger and showed a look of disdain, casually saying, The 7-colored ghost infant flower is born with the ability to emit a sound similar to a baby's cry. If a cultivator is allowed to hear this sound for many years, it will be beneficial to the growth of their soul. On top of that, this spirit flower can be refined into a mysterious grade pill that can nourish one's soul. What Senior says is right, but the grade of this spirit flower is too high. In this world, besides Grandmaster Xiao, I'm afraid no one would dare to refine it, so this junior has been raising it ever since. Yang Zhao nodded solemnly. Who said that no one but Grandmaster Xiao can refine it? Although Qin Ziyi showed an expression of disdain, he didn't say anything more, simply saying, however, this spirit flower naturally prefers the cold, so if it is raised in sand to provide it with energy, it won't have any problems in the short term, but after a long time, its medicinal efficacies will begin to fade and it will naturally show signs of withering. Your young family has deep financial resources, so it shouldn't be a problem to obtain some ice crystals filled with world energy, right? The alchemist who suggested this to you is an idiot, an insult to the title of alchemist. So that's how it is, Junior understands. Yang Zhao suddenly understood. Qin Ziyi nodded, his face filled with arrogance as he said, It's not too late to learn now. If you wait another half a year, this spirit flower will have no value at all. Yes, as Senior Qin says, this junior will immediately follow Senior's instructions. Saying so, Yang Zhao's expression became serious as he continued, But this junior is clumsy, if Senior is willing. Qin Ziyi sneered, I won't go. No matter what you say, this Qin won't go. Yang Zhao was stunned, never having expected Qin Ziyi to refuse so bluntly. This shouldn't be the case. Normally, when this group of alchemists heard about a mysterious grade top-rank alchemy material, shouldn't they all follow him around and insist on seeing it? Why was it different this time? Seeing Qin Ziyi refuse Yang Zhao, The other young family young lords were secretly pleased, but soon their brows furrowed. Qin Zi's refusal to listen to reason this time made them feel quite troubled. Just as they were feeling helpless, another group of people arrived. The eyes of the four brothers couldn't help shrinking because the person who had just arrived was actually Yong Wei. Since the beginning of the Inheritance War, Yong Wei had not taken any action, but today, people from Medicine King's Valley suddenly appearing in War City had alarmed him. Towards this big brother of theirs, the four brothers all felt a bit of awe, secretly remaining vigilant while allowing Yong Wei to step forward. Yong Wei greets Senior. Arriving in front of Qin Zi and the others, Yong Wei greeted indifferently. En. Qin Zi nodded faintly, his attitude neither warm nor cold. Junior has a request, I wonder if Senior can agree. Qin Zi frowned, glancing over Yong Wei for a moment before saying lightly, as long as you don't ask me to perform alchemy for you, I'm willing to listen to your request. Yong Wei nodded, I would like to ask Senior and everyone here to perform alchemy for me. As soon as this statement came out, everyone secretly shivered. They had all come here to block this group from Medicine King's Valley with this purpose in mind, but none of them dared to say it out loud. They had all been observing each other and using their own methods, but none of them had expected Yong Wei to be so blunt. In an instant, everyone became a little nervous, not knowing what kind of decision Qin Zi would make. If Qin Zi agreed, the four of them would have no choice but to die. Surprisingly, Qin Zi didn't become angry and instead just smiled towards Yong Wei, Yong family eldest brother. En, I like your temperament, but this Qin didn't come to War City this time to help you. Yong Wei didn't show much surprise or loss on his face, simply nodding and cupping his fists. Many thanks for your hospitality, Senior. Saying so, he turned around and left, his movements clean and without the slightest hesitation. Yang Zhao, on the other hand, heard some unusual meaning from Qin Zi's words and hesitated for a moment before asking, Senior Qin, who did you come to War City this time to help? No one, we just came here to study the alchemic way. Qin Zi coldly snorted, unwilling to say more. Yang Zhao was stunned. Study the alchemic way? Who would Medicine King's Valley's people want to study the alchemic way from? Especially since these words came out of Qin Zi's mouth. One had to know that he was one of the few mysterious grade alchemists in this world. This reason was too far-fetched. Considering all this, Yang Zhao's face gradually became heavy. Of the Yang family young lords who had participated in the Inheritance War, 5 had appeared, but none of them had been able to persuade Qin Zi, so there were only 2 left. Yang Quan was impossible. Could it be? Yang Zhao's expression suddenly became horrified. Just as this thought flashed across his mind, a cold snort sounded from the distance and a large group of people suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Yang Kai took the lead and walked straight towards the group from Medicine King's Valley. Behind him, Xinghua followed with a light smile, waving his folding fan as he greeted each of the Yang family young lords one by one, as if they were all familiar with each other. Chapter 447. There were no blood warriors around Yang Kai, but everyone present, as long as they had reached the Immortal Ascension Boundary 8th stage, could still clearly feel that there was a pair of eyes watching their every move. Yingju. This powerful blood warrior was definitely lurking nearby. Once someone dared to act against Yang Kai, they would definitely be ruthlessly attacked. The blood warriors who followed the young lords immediately reported this discovery to their superiors. They're all here. Yang Kang's face was gloomy, obviously not very happy. Originally, he could have enjoyed the benefits of being in such a favorable position, but now, everyone in War City knew that Medicine King's Valley had appeared here, attracting one enemy after another to compete with him. Among the crowd, a pair of bright and beautiful eyes suddenly froze as they stared at Yang Kai's figure, her heart overflowing with joy and excitement. Yang Kai's eyes also turned towards her, the murderous intent and coldness in his eyes instantly disappearing, replaced by infinite gentleness, his lips curling up slightly as he revealed a smile. Being stared at like this, Xia Ningchang suddenly became shy. Obviously, she wanted to see how this junior brother of hers was doing recently and whether there had been any changes, but she still couldn't help averting her gaze, her cheeks blushing slightly as her heart began to race. Xia Ningchang's shyness blossomed into a different kind of charm. Although she was always wearing a veil and no one could see her true face, no one doubted that she was a stunning beauty. Her beauty was the kind of beauty that was reserved and restrained. Because the existence of the veil was not eye-catching, it did not steal the limelight, but it was precisely because of this kind of half-concealment that it made her even more attractive. Everyone wanted to know what kind of peerless beauty was hidden under that veil. The flirtatious glances between young Kai and her naturally didn't escape the attention of those who were observing them. In an instant, the expressions of the several young lords became ugly. Unlike them, their ninth brother seemed to have some kind of relationship with this woman. This was what it meant to be in a favorable position. Junior brother Yang Qin Ziyi, who had always been arrogant, actually greeted young Kai with a smile on his face, becoming incomparably amiable. Moreover, when they heard this form of address, they were confused. Brother Qin. Young Kai smiled and returned the greeting. He then turned his gaze to the two beautiful women in front of him and said seriously, Aunt Xiong, Aunt Lan. The two beautiful women responded with a smile, their attitudes friendly. Treasurer Meng Wu Ya nodded. Seeing the scene of young Kai greeting this group of people, Yang Zhao's eyes shrank sharply. Only now did he realize that the identities of these two beautiful women were also extraordinary. These two beautiful women. They seemed to be the two maidservants who lived on Hidden Cloud Peak and served Xiao Fu Sheng's daily life. For several dozen years, he had been living in seclusion on Hidden Cloud Peak, never leaving the mountain, but today he had actually come to War City. It was rumored that these two beautiful women were ordinary people without the strength to truss a chicken. However, no one dared to show them the slightest disrespect. Because they had given up their most beautiful years, silently taking care of Xiao Fu Sheng on Hidden Cloud Peak. If not for their careful service, there may not have been the Grandmaster Xiao Fu Sheng of today. In Xiao Fu Sheng's eyes, these two women were definitely important figures. Why would such people come to War City? Was it Xiao Fu Sheng's idea? Why would Xiao Fu Sheng do this? Considering all this, Yang Zhao couldn't help feeling a bit horrified. Glancing over at Yang Kai again, his eyes filled with dread. Yang Kang, Yang Shen, and Yang Ying also saw the subtle atmosphere in the field. This group of people from Medicine King's Valley were so friendly with Yang Kai, obviously they were here to seek refuge with him. If it were any other great force, they could still offend them and use a strong stance to intercept them here or expel them from War City. But against Medicine King's Valley, they didn't dare make any big moves, so all of them turned their eyes to Yang Zhao, hoping he would be able to come up with a solution. Yang Zhao couldn't see the situation in front of him, but even if these people were from Medicine King's Valley, even if he couldn't afford to offend them, this time he had to, otherwise, the situation would only become more and more troublesome in the future. Taking a deep breath, Yang Zhao said, Senior Qin, Medicine King's Valley has never participated in the inheritance war. Why have you come to break the balance this time? Please give us juniors an explanation. Qin Zedi's face showed a trace of impatience as he coldly said, Second young lord, this Qin has already said that this time my valley's people have come here only to learn the alchemic way, not to participate in the inheritance war. Your young family's life and death battle has nothing to do with my Medicine King's Valley. Yang Zhao smiled lightly and calmly said, Since you have come to perform alchemy, how about senior come to my house to perform alchemy? All the materials you need can be provided, even the 7-colored ghost nascent flower that this junior mentioned before can be given to senior. Qin Ziyi frowned and said with dissatisfaction, Nonsense, what kind of alchemy master does your house have that my Medicine King's Valley disciples can learn from? If my house doesn't have one, could it be Ninth Brother's house has one? Yang Zhao's tone gradually became tough. Obviously he knew that it was impossible to convince these arrogant alchemists with just empty words. Since soft tactics didn't work, he could only use hard tactic. As he spoke, Yang Zhao winked to the other young lords, all of them understanding and secretly preparing themselves. Yes. Unexpectedly, Qin Ziyi actually responded. Yang Zhao smiled bitterly and shook his head, thinking that the excuses these Medicine King's Valley disciples were finding were too lame. Ninth Brother's house hadn't recruited any alchemists these past few days, and even if he had, there was no alchemist who could allow these Medicine King's Valley disciples to learn from. His expression gradually becoming cold, Yang Zhao helplessly shook his head and said, "Since Senior has decided to act this way, this Junior has nothing to say." The reason why Medicine King's Valley is so respected is not only because it is the gathering place of all the world's elite alchemists, but also because Medicine King's Valley has maintained a neutral stance for thousands of years. Since Senior wants to break this tradition that has been maintained for thousands of years, please forgive this Junior for being disrespectful. Qin Ziyi shouted, "Don't tell me you want to fight. We have no other choice. Please forgive us, Senior. But please rest assured, these junior brothers will be careful not to hurt any of your valley's disciples." Yang Zhao's expression remained indifferent, saying all the good and bad words he wanted to say. First, he wanted to use the word reason so that in the future when this matter spread out, the world wouldn't blame him. As he spoke, the group of masters behind Yang Zhao all stepped forward. At the same time, Yang Kang, Yang Shen, and Yang Ying also issued orders. The three of them didn't have the same courage as Yang Zhao and were somewhat reluctant to offend Medicine King's Valley, but now that things had reached this point, they had no other choice but to temporarily join forces with Yang Zhao to put pressure on Qin Ziyi and the others while secretly praying that this group of alchemists wouldn't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. It would be best if everyone could take a step back and peacefully resolve this matter. The atmosphere in the field suddenly became tense. The crowd watching the lively scene all gaped, secretly marveling at the boldness of the Yang family young lords. Although Medicine King's Valley had been attacked by the Ash-Grey Cloud Evil Land last time and had suffered heavy losses, even destroying the Pill Saint statue, it was still Medicine King's Valley. These three words carried unparalleled weight. No one had ever dared to offend Medicine King's Valley like this, but today, someone had set the precedent. "Do you think I don't exist?" Yang Kai, who had been watching coldly from the sidelines, sneered at this moment, his face filled with murderous intent. "If you want to touch my people, you'll have to go through me first." Yang Zhao gently shook his head, "Ninth brother, although I admit that you're not weak right now, with only these few people you brought with you, isn't it a bit unrealistic to think you can protect this group of people? Don't lose your troops just to accompany the madam and be eliminated early." Yang Kang, Yang Shen, and Yang Ying also immediately glared towards Yang Kai, their faces filled with unkind intentions. Against Medicine King's Valley, they were hesitant to act, but against Yang Kai, they couldn't wait to destroy him. "Second brother, you can try," Yang Kai said calmly. Yang Zhao's expression became dignified as he swept his eyes over the people Yang Kai had brought with him. There were only two groups. One was from the Hua family with two powerful Immortal Ascension Boundary 5th Stage Masters, not inferior to an average Immortal Ascension Boundary 7th or 8th Stage Master. The other group was from the Dong family with two Immortal Ascension Boundary 7th or 8th Stage Masters. In addition, there were also a few Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters and a group of Yuan Qi Masters. Ying Ju was hiding in the dark, his whereabouts unknown. Although such a group of people wasn't weak, under the joint attack of so many parties, they were obviously at an absolute disadvantage. Why was his ninth brother still so calm? Last night's incident made Yang Zhao realize that Yang Kai wasn't as easy to deal with as he had thought. This ninth brother of his was extremely insidious and was good at concealing his strength. His methods were often unique and had a unique style. It was impossible for him to bring people to their deaths without making preparations. What about his other allies? According to the information he had gathered, 11 groups of people had gathered under his command over the past few days, but there were only 2 groups here. Where were the other 9? Considering all this, Yang Zhao's expression changed and he couldn't help feeling aghast. Glancing over at Yang Kai again, Yang Zhao found that his smile was full of trepidation. Not daring to hesitate any longer, Yang Zhao shouted, "Fifth brother, sixth brother, seventh brother, let's join forces and teach ninth brother how to respect his elder brother. We'll follow second brother's orders." The 3 nodded. All kinds of martial skills and artifacts were activated at the same time at this moment, enveloping the people Yang Kai had brought with him. All 4 sides joined forces to deal with Yang Kai, and in an instant, the Dong and Hua family groups fell into a difficult situation. All the Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters summoned their defensive artifacts and tried their best, but still failed to block all the attacks. Hua Xing, Dong Qinghan, and young Kai also used their own methods to find a safe position in the midst of the energy storm. Seeing young Kai's group struggling to cope, Yang Kang and the others couldn't help feeling happy, seemingly imagining the scene of them defeating Yang Kai today. However, Yang Zhao didn't think so. With Ying Ju hiding nearby, it would be too difficult to capture Yang Kai, unless the 4 young lords dispatched 2 or 3 blood warriors, but that would also expose them to danger. Capture them! Yang Zhao shouted angrily, taking advantage of the chaos brought by Yang Kai to turn his eyes to the alchemists from Medicine King's Valley. Chapter 448. Under Yang Zhao's order, many masters rushed towards the Medicine King's Valley disciples. The Medicine King's Valley disciples, in addition to their superb alchemy techniques, didn't have high cultivation, so in the eyes of these masters, they were nothing more than a group of sheep waiting to be captured. Without using any powerful means, many immortal ascension boundary masters simply flew towards the Medicine King's Valley disciples, each of them stretching out a big hand and grabbing towards the approaching alchemists. Qin Ziyi stood in place, indifferent, as if he wasn't worried at all that his valley's disciples would be taken away. The 30 alchemists wearing white robes were also calm and collected, completely unperturbed by this sudden turn of events. Yang Zhao didn't feel the slightest uneasiness. Even if alchemists were arrogant, in the face of crisis, they should have an instinctive reaction and panic, but these people didn't show any such reaction. Why? Just as those experts were about to approach the alchemist camp, the gem on Xia Ningchang's forehead suddenly blossomed with a dazzling light. Immediately, a pale blue light spread out in a semicircle, enveloping all the disciples of the Medicine King's Valley. Many of the masters who were caught off guard bumped into this light curtain and couldn't help feeling an amazing elasticity, causing them to jump back and frown. Sure enough, they were prepared. Yang Zhao had long known that the Medicine King's Valley disciples couldn't be easily captured, so when he saw this light curtain, he didn't show much surprise. Instead, his expression became more resolute as he waved his hand and shouted, "Break it!" If this group of people just wanted to rely on a good defensive artifact to block the path of these masters, it was obviously a miscalculation. This artifact was indeed quite good. But these cultivators weren't mediocre either. The brilliance of martial skills and artifacts bloomed once again, and the light curtain created by Xia Ningchang really seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. However, the Medicine King's Valley disciples didn't show any signs of panic. Yang Zhao's eyes became deep as he stared at the movements of the Medicine King's Valley disciples, the uneasiness in his heart growing stronger and stronger, making him want to immediately leave this place. Just as the light curtain began to crack and was about to shatter, a series of stars suddenly lit up in the sky. Amidst the destruction of the starlight, clusters of light suddenly flew out and transformed into sharp weapons at an incredible speed. These sharp weapons made of pure yuan qi were extremely dazzling. The fluctuations were intense. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, all of the sharp weapons seemed to have been thrown out by someone with great strength. Countless ear-piercing sounds rang out, and the starlight was dazzling. It was like an extremely sharp knife. Pressing forward with an indomitable will, cutting through metal and breaking stone, unstoppable. Everyone's expression suddenly changed, and they all moved to the side, avoiding these attacks that were emitting shocking energy fluctuations. Boom boom boom, a series of yuan qi weapons were blocked by these masters, but the resulting shockwaves forced everyone to retreat again and again. Some of the weaker Immortal Ascension Boundary masters even coughed up a mouthful of blood on the spot, their faces pale. Only those above the Immortal Ascension Boundary 7th stage. That was why he was unharmed. Yang Zhao's eyes immediately turned to the only old man among the Medicine King's Valley disciples. Yang Zhao couldn't see through this old man's origins, nor did he make any moves, but Yang Zhao still instinctively stared at him, not knowing why. Yang Zhao felt that the move just now was the work of this old man. However, this seemingly harmless old man also gave him an inexplicable and strange pressure. One move, just one move, without even using his full strength, had actually forced back 7 or 8 Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters. Just how strong was this person? It couldn't be an above Immortal Ascension Boundary Master, right? How could there be such a master in Medicine King's Valley? The masters who had been repelled all stared at each other in shock, none of them knowing who had just attacked them. Everyone was bewildered, guessing inwardly. The stars in the sky suddenly converged rapidly, transforming into a single star ring the size of a baby's palm that was held by the masked woman. An artifact. Yang Zhao's eyes trembled as he stared at this incredible change. He had thought that there was a peerless master hidden among the Medicine King's Valley disciples, but never had he imagined that the blow just now was actually the result of an artifact. Only an artifact of mystic grade mid-rank or above could possess such a formidable power. Looking at the masked woman again, Yang Zhao couldn't help but feel a sense of defeat. He was a direct descendant of the Yang family, the second eldest, but even he didn't have such a profound heritage. What was the background of this woman? The two artifacts she had summoned before and after were both extraordinary, so who knew if she had more artifacts on her? Yang Zhao hesitated for a moment before gritting his teeth and shouting to the blood warrior and Yi Xinru beside him, "Let's go, go!" Yi Xinru was also sizing up Xia Ningqiang, comparing herself to her, but still couldn't figure out anything. Suddenly hearing this sentence, she couldn't help gawking. By the time she reacted, Yang Zhao had already taken the blood warrior and quietly left. Yi Xinru hurriedly caught up with him and asked with a puzzled expression, "Second young lord, why did you give up so easily? This isn't like your style." Before Yang Zhao could answer, a person appeared in front of him and anxiously reported, "Second young lord, there's been a big movement in Yang Kai's mansion. 9 groups of people have been dispatched, only Chu Jiaoyi has been left behind to guard the central hall." "I know." Yang Zhao couldn't help speeding up his pace, a bitter smile appearing on his face. "Ninth brother is really bold, actually leaving behind only 1 blood warrior to guard the mansion. His one." Yi Xinru couldn't help her beautiful face going pale, only now understanding why Yang Zhao had left so decisively. It wasn't because he wanted to retreat. With the 4 Yang family brothers joining forces, no matter how powerful Yang Kai was, it would be impossible for him to protect his group of alchemists. If things continued like this, all the alchemists from Medicine King's Valley would definitely be taken away. But that would take time. During this time, where would the 9 groups of people in Yang Kai's mansion go? If they went to Yang Zhao's mansion, would the people in it be able to defend it? Attacking the enemy's most important task was to rescue them, and Yang Kai could easily resolve the current crisis. Therefore, Yang Zhao had to leave. Not only did Yang Zhao have to leave, but Yang Kang, Yang Shun, and Yang Ying also had to return quickly, because no one could be sure whether the 9 groups of people would take advantage of his absence to visit his mansion. No one could underestimate the strength of these 9 groups of people. What's more, the masked woman actually possessed a mysterious grade mid-rank artifact. Her identity was definitely extraordinary. Before figuring out the true identity of this woman, Yang Zhao didn't dare move against her. Almost at the same time Yang Zhao received the news, Yang Kang also received the news. Yang Shun and Yang Ying also received reports from their subordinates, and both of them couldn't help muttering under their breath as they stared towards Yang Kai with dread. Yang Kai simply grinned at them. There was a hint of slyness and smugness in his smile. "Where's second brother?" Yang Kang swept his eyes around but didn't find any trace of Yang Zhao, causing his expression to become cold and gloomy. Because he found that he had been abandoned by his second brother, his heart suddenly filled with depression. "Ninth brother, you're really something. Today's matter ends here. 5th brother will teach you a lesson next time." Yang Kang coldly snorted and waved his hand. Yang Kai quickly took his people and left. "Ninth brother, thank you for your advice." Yang Shun also angrily waved his hand and quickly retreated. The next moment, Yang Ying's people also scattered like birds and beasts. In an instant, the original battle subsided, causing those who had been watching the fun to be extremely confused. None of them understood why the 4 Yang family brothers had chosen to retreat when they had the absolute upper hand. Not only did they not understand, but the people from Medicine King's Valley also didn't understand. Instead, Meng Wuya glanced over at Yang Kai thoughtfully and found that this little brat had grown a lot over the past few years. Whether it was his wisdom or strength, both seemed to have improved by leaps and bounds. Yang Kai didn't try to stop the 4 brothers from leaving. He hadn't brought many people with him, so if they really fought, it wouldn't be good for them. Meng Wuya also didn't seem to have any intention of taking action, so Yang Kai naturally didn't try to provoke them and let them go. Everyone, you must have been frightened. Yang Kai walked over to the Medicine King's Valley disciples and cupped his fists. It's fine. Qin Ziyi waved his hand, the disciples weren't hurt. Yang Kai nodded and turned his eyes to Xia Ningchang, calmly saying, "Little senior sister, I missed you." His words were sincere, without the slightest hint of pretentiousness, as if he was just casually speaking the words in his heart. Xia Ningchang stared at him blankly, her watery eyes immediately replaced by surprise and shyness, not daring to answer, her long eyelashes trembling. Hey, in front of this old master, flirting with this old master's disciple, isn't that a bit inappropriate? The veins on Meng Wuya's forehead throbbed, his face filled with dissatisfaction. Although he also knew that Yang Kai's future was limitless, seeing his precious disciple's attitude towards Yang Kai, he couldn't help feeling depressed. Did cousin miss me? Dong Qing Yang jumped out and asked with a smile. No, Yang Kai shook his head. Dong Qing Yang suddenly pursed her lips and glared at Yang Kai bitterly, muttering, "Smelly cousin, rotten cousin, I hate you so much." Yang Kai didn't care and just smiled at everyone. Let's go back to the house first. His 4 brothers had to return to defend, so Yang Kai also had to return quickly. Only Chu Jiao Yi was left in the house, so he couldn't afford to be careless. The group from Medicine King's Valley had originally followed Xia Ningchang to join Yang Kai, so naturally there was no objection. With him leading the group, they all returned. Looking at Xia Ningchang and Yang Kai flying at the front of the group, smiling and chatting, Lan Chudai couldn't help showing a wry smile. It seemed that she had also had the opportunity to build a good relationship with this junior brother in the past. But at that time, she hadn't grasped the opportunity and chose to abandon him when he was at his most difficult. By the time she turned back, it was already too late. After leaving High Heaven Pavilion and taking refuge with the Dong family, Lan Chudai no longer thought about High Heaven Pavilion, but as the news of the Yang family's inheritance war spread, she once again heard the name Yang Kai. Only now did she realize just how precious a piece of jade she had thrown away was. It was ridiculous that she had thought it was just a grain of sand at that time. Sister Lan. Beside her, Dong Qinghan suddenly opened his mouth and said in a low voice, "My cousin, although he is young, has spent the past few years in the outside world and has experienced many different aspects of life. Coupled with his background and strength, he is quite strong and holds grudges. However, as long as we show enough sincerity, I think we should be able to move him. After all, he is also a man of flesh and blood." Chapter 449. When Dong Qinghan's words reached her ears, Lan Chudai's beautiful eyes flashed as she looked at him with a smile. Why did young master suddenly think of saying such things? Dong Qinghan shrugged, it was just a casual remark. Saying so, he began chatting with Dong Qingyang, as if he really was just speaking casually. Lan Chudai opened her mouth, wanting to say a few more words about Yang Kai to Dong Qinghan, but she couldn't bring herself to do so. Looking at the figure in front of her, Lan Chudai slowly shook her head, knowing that in this lifetime she would never have such a good opportunity again. Half an hour later, everyone arrived at the mansion. The house was quiet, with no one in sight. Except for Chu Jiao Yi and the ordinary maidservants who were guarding the main hall, everyone else had been taken out by Qiu Yimeng. Yang Kai was busy arranging for the people from Medicine King's Valley to enter the main hall and serving tea. He didn't even have time to exchange a few words with his little senior sister. The people from Medicine King's Valley were not hypocritical or polite, and they didn't treat Yang Kai as an outsider, so the atmosphere was naturally lively and harmonious. After an hour, Qiu Yimeng led her people back. She had taken the 9 groups of people to stroll around War City and didn't really attack anyone, but even so, it was enough to deter the other Yang family young lords. Yang Kai introduced his helpers to Qin Ziyi one by one. Qin Ziyi just nodded lightly in response, not saying much. The arrogance of an alchemist was obvious, and this was only because of Yang Kai's face. If it were any other time, Qin Ziyi probably wouldn't even be willing to meet with these people. Qiu Yimeng quickly arranged the accommodations for the Medicine King's Valley young lady. Qin Ziyi still gave her some face, smiling and saying a few words, praising the Chiu family for having a successor, causing Chiu Yimeng to laugh modestly. Soon, everything was arranged properly. While Chiu Yimeng was busy, Yang Kai was also busy. This time, Yang Kai's original plan had been disrupted, so tonight he had to set up some defenses. This was to prevent his brothers from joining forces to launch a sneak attack on him. After working until late at night, Yang Kai finally had some free time. Just as he was about to go to rest. But she was stopped by the Chiu family's first miss in the shadows. "What are you doing?" Yang Kai looked at the pair of beautiful eyes in the darkness and asked in confusion. I was just about to ask you what you were going to do, leaving in such a hurry." Chiu Yimeng stood in front of Yang Kai, her beautiful eyes sweeping over him. "None of your business." Chiu Yimeng snorted and said in a strange tone, "Even if you don't say it, I know you're going to find that little senior sister of yours, right?" "Yes," Yang Kai admitted frankly. "I knew your relationship wasn't ordinary." Chiu Yimeng felt a little sour in her heart as she curled her lips and asked, "Is she from your sect?" "Yes, he's also from High Heaven Pavilion." "But why do I see that Qin Z's group is very respectful to her? He seems to be even more respectful than you." "She's not that old." "That's strange. Is there some inside story?" Chiu Yimeng looked puzzled. When arranging the accommodations for the group from Medicine King's Valley, she had heard the conversation between Qin Zi and Xia Ningchang. That was clearly the respectful attitude of a junior towards an elder, which made her feel a little unusual. "There are some reasons, but I can't explain them clearly. You'll understand in a few days." Yang Kai didn't explain. "This should be a group of people you plan to help, right?" "It's in the plan, but I didn't expect so many people to come." Chiu Yimeng smiled. 30 alchemists from Medicine King's Valley, and one of them is mysterious grade. "Yang Kai, you've really struck it rich. If this news spreads out, there will definitely be many people coming to join you." Yang Kai slowly shook his head. "There are advantages and disadvantages. You should understand this better than I do." Chiu Yimeng nodded. "You don't want to stand out, but now you're already a tall tree that attracts the wind. What will you do in the future? Do you still want to keep a low profile?" "Why not?" Yang Kai grinned. "Beauty, you seem to only see the sensational effect of this group of people from Medicine King's Valley, but not their combat effectiveness. Now that they've come to join me, it's true that they will make my brothers worry, but don't forget, this group of people doesn't have much cultivation. When my brothers calm down and understand this point, they won't take them seriously anymore." Chiu Yimeng was stunned for a moment before nodding. "Yes, I was also a little excited by their arrival and neglected this point. Even with the addition of this group of alchemists, it would take at least 3 months for Yang Kai's group to improve their cultivation qualitatively. Moreover, this was under the premise that there was an adequate supply of materials. 3 months was enough time for a lot of things to happen. What's more, they also had alchemists in their respective houses, but the overall level of those alchemists couldn't be compared to this group from Medicine King's Valley. If they really calculated, it would take at least 3 months for this group of people from Medicine King's Valley to improve the cultivation of Yang Kai's group, and at least 6 months to open up the gap between them and the cultivator from the other houses. Today's matter could only be said that the Yang family's younger generation was shocked by the arrival of Medicine King's Valley's alchemists and made a big fuss out of nothing. Chiu Yimeng pondered for a moment before whispering, "So, the addition of Medicine King's Valley's people won't have much of an impact on them, at least in the short term. However, as time passed, the role of this group of people from Medicine King's Valley would only grow. Let's see if they can figure it out." Yang Kai grinned, his 2 rows of white teeth glowing in the darkness, causing Chiu Yimeng to be stunned. Frowning, Chiu Yimeng suddenly chuckled. "I found that your attitude towards me these past few days has been a little different, not as cold as before." "Is that so?" Yang Kai was also taken aback. In retrospect, this was indeed the case. In the past, Chiu Yimeng was too shrewd and calculating, so he didn't want to get close to this woman. However, as the inheritance war unfolded, Chiu Yimeng had left the Chiu family and joined his camp. Perhaps because of this, his attitude towards her had inadvertently changed. "Have you discovered my charm and begun to like me?" Chiu Yimeng chuckled, her eyes filled with provocation. Yang Kai stared at her. the corners of his mouth slowly rising, but without saying anything, he simply approached her step by step. The Cho family's first young lady suddenly paled, glancing around and discovering that there was no one around. She couldn't help taking a step back, directly blocking her path. In the next moment, a hot breath rushed towards her as Yang Kai put on a frivolous expression, stretching out one hand and placing the other on her shoulder, looking down at her. The distance between the two of them was less than an inch, so the oppressive feeling coming from him caused Qiu Yimeng to panic. She quickly realized that stopping him here to chat was the wrong choice. She shouldn't have said those words to provoke him. "What do you want to do?" Qiu Yimeng's breathing quickened as her eyes flashed. 500 meters to the left, Xiong Tian Xiao is lying in ambush. 300 meters to the right is where the two Hua family masters are hiding, and 800 meters in front of me is where the 3 Duan Mu family masters are hiding. I'm warning you not to act recklessly. Heh. Yang Kai laughed strangely. What are you afraid of? We're allies. I just want to get closer to you. Even if we want to get closer, you don't have to be like this. Just stay away from me. Qiu Yimeng had never been so anxious before, not daring to look at Yang Kai's aggressive eyes, her body pressed against the wall, unable to escape. I can get closer. Do you want to try? Yang Kai smiled wickedly, silently and mysteriously. The Qiu family's first young lady raised her eyes and glared at him hatefully, her heart filled with bitterness, but when she saw the sly smugness in his eyes, her eyes suddenly lit up. Gritting her teeth, she suddenly smiled and took the initiative to stretch out her hands, wrapping them around Yang Kai's neck like water snakes, softly saying, "Good, come on, I want to see how you'll have the face to see your little senior sister." As she spoke, she stood on her tiptoes and pressed her perky breasts against Yang Kai's chest, full of provocation. Yang Kai's eyes blinked, immediately reaching out and pinching Qiu Yimeng's cheeks, letting go of her with a laugh. "Playing around is fine, but don't get serious with me, I can't take it." His voice gradually faded away, and by the time Qiu Yimeng recovered from her shock, Yang Kai had already disappeared. Beast! Qiu Yimeng felt extremely wronged, reaching out and touching her face. It hurt like hell. This smelly man didn't know how to control his strength and didn't have the slightest bit of compassion for the fairer sex. After feeling wronged for a while, Qiu Yimeng stared at the place where Yang Kai disappeared, a look of loss filling her face. It was undeniable that this man was the best she had ever seen so far, and quite possibly the best in this world. Such a man was more than qualified to be worthy of her, and she also had a good impression of him. But Qiu Yimeng didn't dare have any thoughts about him, because such a man would not be bound by her. Compared to being with him, Qiu Yimeng wanted to see how far this man could go, and what height he would eventually stand at, overlooking all living thing. Perhaps when that day came, she would be able to abandon everything and follow him, but definitely not now. The door to Xia Ningchang's room was tightly shut. A young girl with a veil on her face was sitting at the table, deep in thought. The lights around her flickered, just like her mood, undulating up and down. The words Yang Kai had said to her during the day still rang in her ears, and every time she thought about it, Xia Ningchang's heart filled with sweetness. Her delicate face was always filled with a happy and shy smile, but unfortunately, no one was fated to see it. Yang Kai had never said such direct and shameful words to her. Thinking about this deeply, Xia Ningchang's cheeks became even redder, covering her face with both hands, feeling somewhat embarrassed. The days she spent in High Heaven Pavilion were the sweetest and happiest days of her life, but unfortunately, those days did not last long. Suddenly, the door to her room opened and closed, and a figure rushed in like a whirlwind. Xia Ningchang awoke from her contemplation and only had time to cry out before she was picked up and placed on the bed. The yuan qi and divine sense that had just been condensed immediately dissipated. Although she didn't see what this person looked like, Xia Ningchang smelled a familiar scent and already knew who it was. Chapter 450. Under the flickering light, Xia Ningchang sat on Yang Kai's lap, held in his arms. Her expression was timid as she secretly glanced at her junior brother, then quickly looked away. Her delicate earlobes immediately turned bright red, small and cute. Yang Kai gazed at her with a smile, full of affection. His burning gaze seemed to be able to melt Xia Ningchang. Silence was better than words. This simple contact had already vented their longing for each other, leaving behind only sweetness and happiness. Xia Ningchang felt satisfied for the first time. Although Yang Kai used to look at her affectionately when he saw her, he had never been so direct and undisguised like this. He still has me in his heart, the girl thought to herself as a smile bloomed on her delicate face. She shrunk her delicate body into Yang Kai's arms. An invisible divine sense suddenly enveloped Yang Kai. The divine sense was mixed with some information and directly transmitted to Yang Kai's mind. Stinking brat, this old man is next door. Don't force me to destroy you now. Receiving this information, Yang Kai faintly smiled. He also condensed his divine sense and transmitted it to the room next door. Treasurer Meng, peeping at your own disciple is very immoral behavior. You should have some self-respect. When this information was transmitted, Yang Kai could clearly feel that the divine sense belonging to Meng Wuye suddenly shook, as if it was frightened. After a while, a strange cry came from the room next door. Master, what's wrong? Xia Ningchang hurriedly raised her head and asked. It's nothing. He probably had a nightmare. Xia Ningchang pursed her lips and smiled. She clearly knew that Yang Kai was talking nonsense. Since Yang Kai said so, Meng Wuye could no longer hide it. He said in a muffled voice, when you have time, come find me. I have some things to ask you. Yes, I also have some things to ask you. Yang Kai nodded gently. Meng Wuye slowly withdrew his divine sense. He would no longer spy on them. Inside the room, Yang Kai and Xia Ningchang looked at each other and smiled, suddenly feeling a lot more relaxed. Although the two of them knew that Meng Wuya had good intentions, being stared at by such a master with his divine sense still made them feel somewhat restrained. Hugging his little senior sister, he didn't do anything presumptuous. He just enjoyed the warm feeling. Xia Ningchang's body was very soft. There seemed to be no bones. There was also an intoxicating fragrance on her body. It was natural and refreshing. Little senior sister is amazing, you've already reached the immortal ascension boundary first stage. Yang Kai couldn't help but sigh in admiration. The last time they had left Hidden Cloud Peak, she had only been around Yuan Qi boundary 7th stage, but now she had successfully broken through to the immortal ascension boundary. This kind of cultivation speed was not inferior to his own. It's all thanks to junior brother. What did you leave behind for me? After I take 1 drop every day, my cultivation speed is much faster than before. During this period of time, he had been discussing the art of alchemy with the Grandmaster. I've also been studying the spirit array you gave him, so I haven't been cultivating much. Yang Kai couldn't help showing a trace of surprise. She hadn't cultivated much and yet she had already reached this level. If she had been diligent in her cultivation, what would that be like? His little senior sister was indeed blessed by the heavens with a physique advantage. That, its myriad drug liquid, it can cleanse one's body. Do you have any more? I have a lot here. Xia Ningchang nodded. I still have some. I only take 1 drop every day. I also gave it to Master, but it seems to have no effect on Master's injuries. Treasurer Meng is injured. Yang Kai was shocked. How did he get injured? The little senior sister tilted her head, her brow wrinkling slightly as she whispered, I don't know, Master never told me the details. I only know that he is injured and needs me to cultivate diligently in order to help him heal. Yang Kai's expression became strange. A master like Meng Wuye was actually injured. Yang Kai had witnessed his strength with his own eyes. Compared to an ordinary peak immortal ascension boundary master, perhaps only an above immortal ascension boundary master could defeat him. Moreover, looking at his appearance, there was no trace of injury. Could it be an old injury? However, if it was just an old injury, the myriad drug liquid should have some effect. Yang Kai's mind raced, and he decided to wait until he had time to find Meng Wuye and ask him about it. Although Treasurer Meng didn't like spending time with his little senior sister, that was out of consideration for his disciple. In fact, Treasurer Meng had always taken good care of him, especially when they were in High Heaven Pavilion. This was something Yang Kai still remembered. Junior brother, do you have any news about Su Yang? Xia Ningchang suddenly asked. Yang Kai's expression couldn't help becoming gloomy as he slowly shook his head. I've already sent people to inquire, but I haven't heard back. I don't know where she and the people from High Heaven Pavilion went. Don't worry, she'll definitely be safe. Xia Ningchang softly said, stretching out her small hand and boldly stroking Yang Kai's hair, trying to comfort him. If she hears you're here, she'll definitely come looking for you. I hope so. Yang Kai took a deep breath, calmed his fluctuating mood, and changed the subject. Little senior sister, what was that thing you used during the day? It actually repelled so many immortal ascension boundary masters with a single move. Xia Ningchang pursed her lips into a smile as she flicked her finger and the star ring that had appeared earlier in the day reappeared. This is what Master gave me after I broke through to the immortal ascension boundary, the hidden star ring. According to him, it is a mysterious grade mid-rank artifact and contains 3 of Master's martial skills. I only need to circulate my true chi and divine sense to activate the martial skills inside. Yang Kai couldn't help feeling moved, but at the same time, a look of understanding appeared on his face. He had always been puzzled. Even if Xia Ningchang's physique was unique and she had already reached the immortal ascension boundary, it was impossible for her to display such powerful strength with just a single mysterious grade artifact. In the end, the power of an artifact depended on the cultivator to activate it. Now that he heard her explanation, it made sense. That was equivalent to Meng Wu Ya using his full strength. How could those immortal ascension boundary 7th or 8th stage cultivator block it? Treasurer Meng's heritage is truly profound. Yang Kai's mouth slowly curved upwards, his thoughts turning, wondering if he should obtain a few mysterious grade artifacts from Meng Wu Ya. However, with Meng Wu Ya's stinginess, this matter would be a bit difficult. His treasures would always be given to Xia Ningchang, others, even Yang Kai, would never be able to take advantage of him. Let's not talk about this for now. Yang Kai returned to his senses and sternly said, little senior sister, since you've come here, you may be very busy in the future. I'll leave the alchemy matters to you. I need to improve the strength of those people as soon as possible. I like alchemy. Xia Ningchang's eyes curved into crescents. Alchemy is a form of cultivation, and it can also help you. Helping me is one thing, but don't tire yourself out, otherwise Treasurer Meng won't give up. Yang Kai smiled and immediately said, little senior sister, release your knowledge see. Achem. Xia Ningchang looked at Yang Kai suspiciously, not knowing why he said this. I have something to teach you about alchemy. Xia Ningchang couldn't help but light up. Something related to those 2 spirit arrays? Yang Kai nodded. Xia Ningchang immediately released his knowledge sea's defenses, and in the next moment, he felt a terrifyingly powerful spiritual energy invade his knowledge sea. This divine sense was enormous and full of aggressiveness. It was as if it was an indestructible sharp knife. It was also mixed with some cold and evil attributes. Fortunately, this divine sense did not attack her, but even so, Xia Ningchang was still shocked. Inside his knowledge sea, Xia Ningchang's spiritual energy condensed into a phantom and tentatively asked, Junior brother? Yang Kai also condensed his own phantom and nodded. How did you? Xia Ningchang looked at the phantom that was countless times stronger than his own spiritual energy. He couldn't understand how Yang Kai could have such a powerful spiritual energy at the Yuan Qi boundary 8th stage. I can't explain it clearly, but it's not a bad thing. Yang Kai grinned and turned his head to look around, quickly discovering that the feeling his little senior sister's knowledge sea gave him was just like her personality, indifferent and fresh. Below him was an endless sea formed from the convergence of spiritual energy threads. Every immortal ascension boundary cultivator would open up their own knowledge sea. As their strength improved and their spiritual energy cultivated, this sea would grow larger and larger, and the energy it contained would also become stronger. Yang Kai had seen Shanqing Luo's knowledge sea before and compared it to Xia Ningchang's. There was a clear difference. The beguiling demon Queen Shanqing Luo's knowledge sea had a vague and seductive aura, but in his little senior sister's knowledge sea, Yang Kai only felt a sense of tranquility from the bottom of his heart. It was as if Xia Ningchang's knowledge sea could purify the evil in one's heart. Above the knowledge sea, 2 phantoms stood facing each other. I'm not familiar with the use of my divine sense right now, so I can only tell you what I know one by one. Just remember it and ask me if you don't understand anything, Yang Kai said. When it came to the use of his divine sense, Yang Kai only had a single soul skill. If he could really use it well, he could wrap the knowledge in his mind with his divine sense, form a light ball of light, and transmit it to his little senior sister without having to go through so much trouble. Xia Ningchang nodded gently. What Yang Kai wanted to tell Xia Ningchang was naturally the true alchemic way. Yang Kai had only glimpsed a small part of the true alchemic way's knowledge, but this knowledge included a variety of magical spirit arrays and the experience of many alchemy grandmasters. These things were worthless to the average person, and even to ordinary alchemists, they were too profound and mysterious. However, for an alchemist of the level of Xia Ningchang's level, this knowledge was no less than a peerless treasure. With this knowledge, Yang Kai believed that his little senior sister would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort in alchemy, perhaps even to an unimaginable degree. As time passed, the sun set and the moon rose. Inside Yang Kai's knowledge sea, the two phantoms stood there quietly, one speaking and one listening, both very serious. Xia Ningchang's comprehension ability was extraordinary, so Yang Kai had some information he didn't quite understand from the true alchemic way's information, but after Xia Ningchang explained it to him, he was suddenly enlightened and benefited greatly. Gradually, the two of them changed from simply imparting knowledge to discussing it with each other, each expressing their own views and slowly comprehending the true alchemic way. Chapter 451. Yang Kai slowly opened his eyes and stretched his somewhat numb body. Looking down, he still held his little senior sister in his arms, the two of them maintaining this posture. His little senior sister's mind was still immersed in her knowledge sea, digesting the alchemy knowledge Yang Kai had passed to her. Regarding the true alchemic way, Yang Kai had already told Xia Ningchang everything he knew. The rest he hadn't figured out yet, so he could only plan for the future. Looking at the beautiful veiled girl in front of him, Yang Kai leaned over and kissed her gently before gently getting up and placing her on the bed. Opening the door and rubbing his forehead, Yang Kai felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him. After discussing the true alchemic way with Xia Ningchang and staying in her knowledge sea for so long, the consumption of his spiritual energy was simply too great. Standing outside the door was a young maidservant with a sweet appearance. When she saw Yang Kai come out, she quickly ran over with small steps, carrying a tray in her hands. On this tray was a large bowl of steaming hot food. "Young master, you've finally come out." The maidservant looked straight at him and said with a smile, "What's the matter?" Yang Kai frowned. "This is what young Lady Chiu ordered this servant to make. She said it's for your health, so eat it while it's hot." Yang Kai couldn't help being surprised, wondering why Chiu Yimeng was so considerate. After hesitating for a moment, he asked casually, "What is this?" The young girl couldn't help blushing slightly as she whispered, "I don't know, young Lady Chiu just said this is for nourishing the kidney and strengthening the yang." Yang Kai couldn't help but feel his face go black. Chiu Yimeng, what did she mean by this? He, young master, please enjoy, I've already heated it up many times," the young girl said as she handed over the tray. Yang Kai instinctively took it, but by the time he recovered, the maidservant had already disappeared. Looking at the bowl in his hand, Yang Kai couldn't help but wonder. Yang Kai's expression was complicated. The door next door suddenly opened and Meng Wuya walked out with a gloomy face. He looked at Yang Kai with dissatisfaction. Yang Kai grinned at him and finished the bowl of soup in one gulp. Then he walked forward and greeted, "Treasurer Meng." Meng Wuya nodded and waved at him. Then, he turned around and walked in. She followed him into the house and the two sat down. Meng Wuya sized up Yang Kai. There was a questioning look in his eyes. "You already have a divine sense. Or is it the power of an artifact?" Through the divine sense transmission, Treasurer Meng had noticed that there was something different about Yang Kai, so he naturally wanted to ask about it. "It's the divine sense that I cultivated myself," Yang Kai calmly admitted. He had wanted to consult Meng Wuya about some matters, so naturally, he had no intention of hiding anything from him. How is that possible? Even with Treasurer Meng's strong mental fortitude, he couldn't help but be shocked. Although he had always guessed that Yang Kai might have really cultivated his divine sense, when Yang Kai admitted it himself, he still couldn't believe it. Little brat, tell me honestly, what happened? I don't know. Yang Kai smiled meaningfully. It was some kind of opportunity. In any case, I cultivated my divine sense. Meng Wu Yue couldn't help rolling his eyes. He knew that Yang Kai was reluctant to reveal his secrets, but he didn't force him. Who didn't have secrets? But your divine sense is a bit strange. Strange in what way? Yang Kai hurriedly asked. It's too strong. Meng Wu Yue said seriously. It shouldn't be so strong. This divine sense is comparable to a peak immortal ascension boundary master. You're only Yuan Qi 8th stage. If you really broke through to the immortal ascension boundary, just how strong would your divine sense be? About this, I'd like to consult you. Yang Kai also frowned. Although I have my divine sense, I don't have a knowledge C. Meng Wu Yue couldn't help but sneer. Nonsense, if you haven't reached the immortal ascension boundary, naturally you don't have a knowledge C. A knowledge C is the symbol of an immortal ascension boundary master. Don't you have your divine sense? Meng Wu Yue slowly shook his head. No, one doesn't have to reach the immortal ascension boundary to have their divine sense. As far as this old master knows, there have been others who were in the same situation as you. Without reaching the immortal ascension boundary, they were able to cultivate their own divine sense. There are others like me. Yang Kai's expression shook as he couldn't help feeling a little stunned. It was only because of the existence of the soul-warming lotus that he was able to cultivate his divine sense by chance, but what about others? What method did they use to achieve this? There are only a few, but this old master knows of one such person. Meng Wu Yue's eyes flashed with a look of reminiscence, but he shook his head again. It's all in the past, but his situation was short-lived. In the early stages of a cultivator's cultivation, they mainly cultivate Yuan Qi. Yuan Qi exists in the Dantian's meridians, but once they reach the immortal ascension boundary, not only must they cultivate their Yuan Qi, but they must also cultivate their divine sense. Similar to Yuan Qi, when one cultivates their divine sense, they also need a place to store it, and that place is their knowledge C. Without a knowledge C, even if a cultivator cultivates their divine sense, it will be like snow melting in early spring, a candle in the wind, dissipating after a few days. That's why this old master said that person's situation was short-lived. But you are different, your divine sense is very strong, so obviously it wasn't born in a day or two. Meng Wu Yue smiled slightly, looking deeply at Yang Kai. This old master doesn't know what secrets you are hiding, but I can be sure that you definitely have a way to store your divine sense and not let it dissipate. Yang Kai nodded silently, a trace of admiration appearing on his face. When one's strength reached Meng Wu Yue's level, it was true that he could infer the truth from small details. He may not know about the existence of the soul-warming lotus, but his inference was definitely not wrong. The place where Yang Kai stored his divine sense was the 5-colored soul-warming lotus in his mind. Since you have divine sense, can you also use soul skills? Meng Wu Yue looked at him sideways. Yes, but I only know one move. One move is more than enough. In the end, divine soul skills are the same as martial skills. Through certain methods, one can perfectly display one's strength. Only the weak need to use such methods. Once you become strong enough, you won't need to stick to some special martial skills or divine soul skills when you fight others. Unconstrained and unrestrained is the standard for the strong. Meng Wu Yue's tone was somewhat sentimental, giving people the feeling that he had once stood on the level of the strong. After pausing for a moment, he smiled sinisterly. But in your current situation, if you use soul skills, don't you feel that the power is not enough? Exactly, Yang Kai's expression became dignified. This is also where I want to ask for guidance. Naturally, it's not enough. Your divine sense is not stored in your knowledge C, it is stored elsewhere. If you use it in battle, it is equivalent to you transferring your divine sense from that place and then using your soul skills. There will be a lot of wasted space in between. All of this will be solved after you open up your own knowledge C. Hearing this, Yang Kai couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Although he had already guessed this himself, with someone to guide him, the situation was different. Treasurer Meng, do you have a special spiritual energy cultivation method on hand? Yang Kai asked with a wink. Currently, he mainly relied on the true alchemic way to cultivate his divine sense, but if he didn't have pills to supplement his spiritual energy, his progress would be too slow. If he had a special spiritual energy cultivation method, the situation would be different, but such things were too rare. Yang Kai knew that the Yang family had one, but it wasn't something he could obtain. Even the fourth master Yang wasn't qualified to learn it. Moreover, even if he did have a special spiritual energy cultivation method, its effect wasn't very significant. Therefore, if a cultivator wanted to supplement their spiritual energy, they mostly relied on recuperation or taking pills. Meng Wu Ya snorted lightly. It's not that I don't have that kind of thing, but on the path of cultivation, you still need to persevere. If you want to take a shortcut, it's impossible. If you have one, teach it to me. Yang Kai grinned, interrupting his preaching. Meng Wu Ya was very depressed and helplessly said, even if this old master doesn't teach you, with Ningchang's temperament, she definitely won't be able to resist your coaxing. Saying so, he passed on the special spiritual energy cultivation method to Yang Kai. Yang Kai studied it seriously and soon memorized it, his expression slightly excited as he asked, how much can this method improve my spiritual energy? 20%, Meng Wu Ya replied casually. So little. Yang Kai was stunned. He had thought that Treasurer Meng's method wouldn't be too bad, but 20% was still a bit shabby. Meng Wu Ya sneered, don't be unsatisfied, every spiritual energy cultivation method is extremely precious. This old master knows that your Yang family has one, and the 8 great families have their own methods, but their methods can't compare to this old master's. Their methods can at most increase the recovery speed of one's spiritual energy by 10%. Yang Kai's expression became serious, only now realizing that he had too little access to high-end information and had somewhat underestimated the value of this method. The Yang family's method, if he remembered correctly, should be a mysterious grade top-rank secret technique. A mysterious grade top-rank secret technique was already at the peak of this world, but it could only increase one's speed by 10%, so this method that could increase one's speed by 20%, what grade would it be? Considering all this, Yang Kai no longer dared to underestimate this method and instead stared at Meng Wu Ya suspiciously. He realized that the more he interacted with Treasurer Meng, the more mysterious he became, and the more surprised he became. Above the mysterious grade was the spirit grade, so what was the above immortal ascension boundary? Yang Kai had a stomach full of doubts and wanted to ask, but after thinking about it for a moment, he decided against it. He hadn't yet reached the immortal ascension boundary, so learning about these things wasn't a good thing. Since you've learned it, then hurry up and scram, don't spend so much time in Ningchang's room. Meng Wu Ya unceremoniously drove him away. How long have I been here? 5 days. Yang Kai was stunned. While discussing the true alchemic way with his little senior sister, time had passed so quickly that even he hadn't realized that 5 days had passed. No wonder he felt a little tired, and no wonder Qiu Yimeng had ordered the servants to prepare those kidney-nourishing and yang-strengthening foods. Staying in his little senior sister's room for 5 days was enough to cause a lot of misunderstandings. However, during these 5 days, something must have happened. In his estimation, at least one of them would have been eliminated. Yang Kai quickly excused himself, left Meng Wu Ya's room, and ran towards the main hall. Chapter 452. Along the way, the people they met all greeted Yang Kai strangely, especially the 4 girls from the 10,000 Flower Palace. When each of them looked at Yang Kai, there was a strange look in their eyes. Lan Chudai also giggled, but her smile was very ambiguous. Yang Kai's expression was meticulous, but he was too lazy to explain anything. This kind of thing would only make things worse. Young Master Kai, it's already so late in the morning, you're really up early. Why aren't you resting in bed? Huoxing Chen suddenly popped out of nowhere and grinned. How have you been these past few days? What do you mean, how have I been? Yang Kai looked confused. Heh, you don't need to pretend in front of me. The Hua family young lord's expression clearly showed that he had seen through Yang Kai, lowering his voice and saying, a man and a woman alone in a room for 5 days, did nothing happen? I don't know what you're talking about. Yang Kai shook his head, pretending to be stupid. Forget it, I understand. But young Lord Kai, this young lord really admires you now. Although I've seen countless women, I've never tried staying in bed for 5 days. You're much better than me in this regard, we should discuss it some other day. Hua Stars said with a sincere smile on his face. I'm too lazy to talk to you. Yang Kai curled his lips. What are you whispering about? Qiu Yimeng happened to walk over from the front, and after seeing Yang Kai, she couldn't help snorting, coldly saying, as one of the young lords participating in the inheritance war, Yang Kai, I hope you can put the overall situation first. A woman is a hero's mound, you know this better than I do. Yang Kai frowned and said, naturally, I know. There's no need for you to remind me. Qiu Yimeng opened her mouth but swallowed her next words. She had already figured out Yang Kai's temper, so naturally, she wouldn't blame him again. This time, it was enough to give him a reminder. If she continued, this smelly man would probably fly into a rage out of humiliation. He would immediately turn hostile. Greetings, young Lord Kai. Next to Qiu Yimeng stood a handsome young man who waited for the two of them to finish speaking before stepping forward to greet them. He was also very humble and respectful. This is... Yang Kai looked at him suspiciously. This person looked unfamiliar. He had never seen him before. The young master of Tianyuan City, Liu Feisheng. I told you last time. Qiu Yimeng explained. Liu Feisheng smiled and said humbly, many thanks to young Lord Kai for accepting me. Tianyuan City is extremely grateful. Yang Kai looked at him and nodded faintly. Your surname is Liu. What's your relationship with the Liu family? I don't dare. Liu Feisheng smiled bitterly. Qiu Yimeng nodded, if you say it has nothing to do with you, then it doesn't matter. For the past few hundred years, the 8 great families had more or less had some connections with the outside world. Young Master Liu's family was originally a branch of the Liu family, but because of some matters, they were expelled from the Liu family 100 years ago. If we really count, Liu Qingyaro should be his cousin. Liu Feisheng's expression became slightly sad, his posture extremely humble. Those who were expelled don't dare mention the Liu family again. Over the past 100 years, we have always strived to return to the family. Although my father has become a city lord, he has not yet reached the point of being accepted. Huosheng's mouth twitched as he smiled. Just follow young Lord Kai. If you can help young Lord Kai win this inheritance war, I think the Liu family should be willing to accept you back. Hearing him say so, Liu Feisheng's face couldn't help showing a touch of excitement as he cupped his fists and said, then I'll have to rely on young Lord Hua's auspicious words. My Tianyuan City will definitely follow young Lord Kai's lead. Young Kai nodded slightly, not saying much, simply turning to Qiu Yimeng and asking, has my 8th brother lost? Qiu Yimeng looked back at him in amazement, chuckling lightly, you also noticed? Of course, if the group from Medicine King's Valley hadn't appeared, perhaps my 8th brother would have been able to hold on for a while, but the arrival of those people from Medicine King's Valley has definitely made my brothers feel a sense of crisis. At this time, if they don't achieve some victories, I'm afraid no one will dare to seek refuge with them. Ian, as you said, Yang Quan has been eliminated. When did this happen? The night before yesterday. Qiu Yimeng explained all the information she had received. The appearance of more than 30 alchemists from Medicine King's Valley had indeed caused the Yang family young lords to panic. On the one hand, they urgently needed a victory to build up their reputation. On the other hand, they were also trying to find a way to curb the help these people from Medicine King's Valley could bring to Yang Kai. The night before yesterday, Yang Zhao, Yang Kang, Yang Shen, and Yang Ying all set their sights on Yang Quan's mansion. Yang Quan only had one Immortal Ascension Boundary 8th Stage Blood Warrior, and in addition, he only had a second-class force from his mother's family as an ally. With such an absolute disadvantage, he simply couldn't defend himself. After a great battle, Yang Zhao obtained the flag while Yang Shen captured Yang Quan. So far, the second Yang family young lord had been eliminated in the inheritance war. The battle that night was quite interesting. Qiu Yimeng smiled. It wasn't so much that they were attacking Yang Quan, but rather that they were killing each other. The defenses of Yang Quan's mansion collapsed in the first wave of attacks. With the exception of the blood warrior who was protecting Yang Quan, the others basically had no power to fight back. It could almost be described as a complete rout. Moreover, your four brothers formed two camps to attack each other, each of them suffering losses. Yang Zhao and Yang Kang are blood brothers, Yang Shen and Yang Ying are also blood brothers, so it can be said that they were evenly matched. Saying so, she glanced over at Yang Kai meaningfully. However, can you guess who gained the most from this battle? Hua Xing also smiled as she waited for Yang Kai's answer, seemingly thinking that he wouldn't be able to come up with an answer to this question. Yang Kai sneered, while they obtained the flag, they also obtained my eighth brother, but these gains were almost equal to the losses they suffered from attacking each other. What they really gained was nothing more than the prestige brought by this victory. If we were to talk about the one who gained the most, besides me, who else could it be? The smiles on Qiu Yimeng and Hua Xing's faces gradually converged as they stared at Yang Kai in amazement, obviously not having expected him to have such a clear understanding of the situation. Liu Fei-sheng was also shocked, a sense of panic filling his heart as he discovered that although he had overestimated Yang Kai, it was still not enough. You know? Qiu Yimeng asked hesitantly, how did you know? What do you think? Yang Kai smiled slightly. Qiu Yimeng suddenly woke up and remembered that a few days ago, when everyone was discussing why Yang Kai didn't take advantage of the situation to pursue the great leader, Yang Kai had said that he didn't want to stand out from the crowd, but there was another reason he hadn't said at the time, only telling everyone that they would understand in a few days. Saying it now would only make them think he was being arrogant. It turned out he had already thought about it at that time. If I didn't know you had stayed in your room for 5 days, I'm afraid I would have thought someone had told you about this in advance. Qiu Yimeng took a deep breath and smiled bitterly. You really are a man who makes people feel powerless. Ian, the one who gained the most was still you. Although you didn't obtain the flag or the great leader, and this time's matter had nothing to do with you, you still gained a blood warrior. The blood warrior in Yang Quan's house took the initiative to join us after Yang Quan was eliminated. Qiu Yimeng quickly said, the strength of that blood warrior is no worse than Tu Feng and Tang Yuxian. Is he injured? Where is he? Yang Kai quickly asked. The blood warriors were an extremely loyal group. Yang Quan had already been eliminated from the game, so how could the blood warrior who followed Yang Quan be safe? The fact that he hadn't died on the spot was already a testament to his strength. He's seriously injured and is currently recuperating. He won't be able to display his full strength for at least 1 to 2 months, but I think with your miraculous methods, it won't take you much effort to heal him, right? Qiu Yimeng snorted lightly. She still couldn't figure out what kind of pills Yang Kai had given to Chu Jiaoyi and Ying Ju that allowed them to fully recover in a single day. Even after Chu Jiaoyi was seriously injured again that night, he appeared in front of everyone the next day full of energy. Even if there were such miraculous pills, they should be extremely precious. How could they be used so recklessly? I'll go see him later. Yang Kai nodded gently. Can you tell me why you did this? Why what? Why didn't that blood warrior seek refuge with any of the other young lords, but instead chose you? Why were you able to determine as early as 10 days ago that after Yang Quan was eliminated, this blood warrior would come to you? How could there be no reason for this? Qiu Yimeng asked a series of questions, obviously having a lot of doubts in her heart. The storm in the Blood Warrior Hall was only known to the Yang family elders and the various young lords, no one else knew about it. Naturally, Qiu Yimeng didn't know much about it. How could she know that Yang Kai had taken a huge risk to choose Chu Jiaoyi and Ying Ju, who had both injured their foundations, in order to win the respect of the entire Blood Warrior Hall? After winning the respect of all the masters of the Blood Warrior Hall, when their young lords were eliminated, if these blood warriors didn't choose Yang Kai, who else could they choose? I can't tell you. Yang Kai grinned, but I can tell you that in the future, all the blood warriors who have been eliminated will come to my house. His tone was confident and his expression arrogant. Qiu Yimeng couldn't help thinking about how, as the young lords were eliminated, one after another powerful blood warriors would gather in Yang Kai's house, a look of shock filling her face. This was something that had never happened before. No young family young lord had ever been able to command all the blood warriors under his command. If things really developed as young Kai said, then he would have created a miracle. At that time, with so many blood warriors present, how could young Kai lose? He was now in an invincible position, and when the time came, the remaining enemies could only pray that young Kai didn't attack them. I suddenly feel some sympathy for your brothers. This wasn't a fair battle at all. Qiu Yimeng smiled bitterly. The inheritance war has never been fair. If it was really fair, how could Yang Tai and Yang Quan have been eliminated so early? Yang Kai coldly snorted. Chapter 453. The inheritance war was a competition of connections and heritage, not a duel between young family young lords. In this process, some young lords would gather less support while others would gather more. Coupled with the participation of the young family blood warriors, there was no such thing as fairness. The inheritance war itself was the law of the jungle. There's one more thing I need to tell you. Qiu Yimeng hesitated for a moment before frowning deeply. Obviously, something had happened that made her unhappy. Speak. It's about the alchemists from Medicine King's Valley. Yang Zhao, along with several of your brothers, has jointly protested to the Yang family elder hall, requesting that the participation of this group of alchemists be cancelled, especially Qin Zedis. Naive. Yang Kai's expression was indifferent, not showing the slightest worry. Qiu Yimeng smiled lightly. Although I think that with your young family's intentions in the inheritance war, the Elder Hall shouldn't take the risk of offending Medicine King's Valley by agreeing to Yang Zhao's request, this matter still needs to be taken seriously. What if your young family Elder Hall becomes muddle-headed and agrees to Yang Zhao's request? That's impossible. Yang Kai shook his head and said firmly, the inheritance war is a competition of interpersonal relationships. Me being on good terms with this group of Medicine King's Valley people is something the Elder Hall would be happy to see. How could they interfere? That makes sense, but with Yang Zhao's shrewdness, he shouldn't do such an unnecessary thing. He must have other intentions. You need to be careful. His intentions. Yang Kai frowned and nodded slightly. Good. While you weren't here, there were probably only these two major events. In addition, Qin Zed's group has been clamoring for materials for alchemy, you see. Has the pill room been allocated? It's been allocated and a lot of alchemy tools have been added, but this group of Medicine King's Valley people have their own pill furnaces. Those tools probably won't be used. Yang Kai nodded, then I'll go give them the materials, you can go about your business. Qiu Yimeng smiled lightly and brushed past Yang Kai. Liu Fei Sheng also nodded in agreement and followed Qiu Yimeng step by step. Young Lord Kai, this Tianyuan city's young city lord seems to be interested in Qiu Yimeng. Since coming here, he's been following Qiu Yimeng inseparably. Hua Stars grinned meaningfully. Don't you have any ideas? If Qiu Yimeng could be conquered by anyone, then she wouldn't be Qiu Yimeng. Yang Kai shook his head lightly. Why do you mention this? I don't know why, but I don't have a good impression of this Liu Fei Sheng. Hua Stars curled his lips. This brat is even more handsome than this young master. This is unreasonable, forget it. I'm going to cultivate. I won't disturb you any further. Hearing him say this, Yang Kai looked at him in surprise. He didn't expect this playboy to be so hardworking. It was probably because they had felt some pressure in his mansion during this period of time. The people coming and going in the mansion were all leaders of the younger generation of their respective forces. Stars Hua was the successor of one of the 8 great families, so he definitely wasn't willing to be inferior to others. It should be because of this that he had restrained his previous debauchery. Arriving at the pill room, Yang Kai took out all the alchemy materials. Qin Zi and the others looked at the room full of alchemy materials. All of them smiled and rubbed their hands together. Brother Qin, from now on, I'll have to trouble you. It's no trouble at all, Qin Zi smiled. How could it be difficult to learn the alchemic way from martial aunt Xia? Xia Ningchang was now a top alchemist comparable to Xiao Fu Sheng. Qin Zi and the others usually found it difficult to even see Xiao Fu Sheng, let alone observe him performing alchemy. Now that they had the opportunity to refine alchemy together with Xia Ningchang, they were naturally excited. Little senior sister will probably take a day or two before she comes out. You can familiarize yourselves with her here for a while. Yang Kai's expression became strange. The way they addressed each other had become a complete mess. Qin Ziyi called Xia Ningchang martial aunt, while he called Qin Ziyi senior brother, so he could only call him senior brother. Junior brother Yang, you're busy, there's no need to entertain us. Qin Ziyi said casually as he began to study the alchemy materials with the other alchemists from Medicine King's Valley. No one paid any attention to Yang Kai after this. Chuckling, Yang Kai quietly withdrew. Xia Ningchang really came out of seclusion 2 days later, having completely digested the true alchemic way Yang Kai had taught him and immediately immersed himself in the alchemic way. Inside the mansion, countless pairs of eyes were staring at the pill room. In addition to those from Medicine King's Valley, Yang Kai had gathered a total of 11 groups of supporters. These people had come to assist Yang Kai in the inheritance war, so Yang Kai naturally had the responsibility and obligation to equip them with his own means and enhance their strength in order to cope with the increasingly fierce battles ahead. If the pill room produced pills, they would definitely be given to them. Therefore, every great force was looking forward to seeing what grade of pills the first batch of pills would be, what they would be used for, and how many people would be able to get a share of the finished pills. Yang Kai's mansion was calm, and so was all of War City. After 2 Yang family young lords were eliminated, the inheritance war seemed to have suddenly fallen into a period of calm. Every young lord was increasing their efforts to recruit helpers, and alchemists and artifact refiners were in short supply. The number of materials circulating in the market was decreasing, and their prices were also increasing. This situation had even spread to the central capital. During this time, Pang Kai and Mu Nando of the Bamboo Knot Gang had gathered a lot of materials and quietly delivered them to Yang Kai's mansion at night, fortunately not being discovered. However, this situation would only happen once. The next time they entered War City, they would likely be intercepted. The flag in Yang Kai's hand had also been exchanged for materials from the family, and all of them had been placed in the pill room. However, Yang Kai was still a little anxious. The other group of helpers he had been waiting for had yet to appear, so he didn't know what had happened. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, half a month later, the first batch of pills from the pill room finally came out. After receiving the news, the leaders of the younger generation of the great forces gathered in the main hall, all of them looking towards Yang Kai with excitement and expectation. 11 families, not a single one missing. With the exception of the Du and Mu family, everyone else was a dazzling sight to behold. This was a stage for the younger generation. Young Lord Kai, will my Hua family have a share in this batch of pills? Hua Stars chuckled and asked, if it's not enough then forget it, they will be given priority. My Hua family isn't in a hurry. Do you really think so? Qiu Yimeng looked at Stars Hua with a smile. How could I lie? Hua Stars' expression became serious. Qiu Yimeng, you're looking down on this Hua Stars too much. My Hua family is one of the 8 great families. What kind of pills do we not have? It's just that I can't take them from my old man right now. All of you have come from afar, give them priority. My Dong family can also be given priority. Dong Qing Han also smiled and took a step back. His thoughts were the same as Hua Stars. Only half a month had passed, so even if the group from Medicine King's Valley had excellent alchemy skills and sufficient materials, they shouldn't have been able to refine many pills, certainly not enough to share among so many people. The Dong family was Yang Kai's mother's family, so naturally, Yang Kai wouldn't treat them unfairly, so it didn't matter if they were given priority. As soon as Dong Qing Han's words fell, a wave of modesty sounded in the hall. All the leaders of the younger generation expressed that they would be given priority over others. This harmonious atmosphere made Qiu Yimeng feel quite happy. After so many days of getting along, Qiu Yimeng had discovered that the people gathered in Yang Kai's house weren't people who liked to fight. Usually, when they were together, they were all very harmonious. Occasionally, when there was some friction between their subordinates, they would quickly mediate, obviously not wanting to add any trouble to Yang Kai. These small details were enough to highlight the weight of Yang Kai in the hearts of these people. If it weren't for Yang Kai holding such a large weight in their hearts, it would have been impossible for them to be so modest. All of this was because Yang Kai was here. Don't be so noisy. Qiu Yimeng smiled. Do you think that if there weren't enough pills to share, Yang Kai would have called all of you here? It's precisely because there are enough pills that all of you are gathered here. When everyone heard this, they couldn't help raising their eyebrows. Xiong Tian Xiao nodded slightly and muttered, worthy of being an alchemist from Medicine King's Valley, the speed at which he performs alchemy is really extraordinary. Zhuo Fang laughed and said, this Zhuo is actually lucky enough to be able to use pills refined by a disciple of Medicine King's Valley. It's all thanks to Brother Yang. Everyone smiled and suddenly felt that joining Yang Kai was a very wise choice. Regardless of anything else, as long as there was a supply of such pills in the future, everyone's strength would steadily improve. Yang Kai smiled and didn't say much. The first batch of pills that came out of the furnace were not from the hands of Medicine King's Valley's disciples but were all refined by Xia Ningchang. The group of people from Medicine King's Valley were still learning alchemy from Xia Ningchang, and it was estimated that it would take a few days before they could really start refining. It wasn't that their alchemy skills weren't exquisite, it was just that Xia Ningchang's methods were too amazing. Even if they wanted to learn, it would take them some time to learn. Qiu Yimeng, distribute the pills. Yang Kai ordered. Qiu Yimeng clapped her hands and immediately a few people from the autumn rain hall walked in from the outside carrying trays. On each tray, there were 2 bottles of unknown pills. How generous, 2 bottles for each family. Hu Stars was stunned. He had thought that in such a short time, each family would be able to get 1 bottle, but the result was twice as many as he had expected. However, if there were so many pills, it meant that the grade of these pills wasn't high. These should be heaven-grade pills. The Hu family young lord secretly speculated. Everyone took the pills and smiled widely. Although they all guessed that this was a heaven-level pill, they didn't look disappointed. Heaven-grade pills were not low-grade, especially when they were supplied to so many people. This is a mixed yuan pill specially used for cultivation. After a pause, Qiu Yimeng smiled and added, a mysterious grade low-rank mixed yuan pill. Chapter 454. The lively voices in the hall suddenly fell silent. Everyone's smiles were still hanging on their faces, but everyone turned to look at Qiu Yimeng and Yang Kai in amazement, their faces full of suspicion, as if wondering if they had misheard or if Qiu Yimeng had misspoken. The Qiu family's first young lady actually knows how to joke. Hua Xingxing suddenly laughed. Everyone in the hall was stunned for a moment and couldn't help laughing, none of them having thought that Qiu Yimeng would actually have such a side to her. However, this joke was really clumsy and there was no humor in it at all. Everyone was just afraid that Qiu Yimeng would be embarrassed, so they pretended to support her. Qiu Yimeng's expression was indifferent as her pair of beautiful eyes swept over the crowd. She didn't refute, nor did she have any intention of taking advantage of the situation, waiting for a long time before asking, "Is it funny?" A series of light coughs rang out. Everyone retracted their expressions and sat up straight. Perhaps you all think I am joking, but what I said is true. What I gave you is a mysterious grade low-rank mixed yuan pill. The pills are in your hands, open them and you will understand. Qiu Yimeng's tone was flat and direct, not at all joking. How is that possible? Hua Xing's face was filled with disbelief as he shook his head. I have also taken a mixed yuan pill. It was originally a heaven-grade top-rank pill. How could it suddenly become a mysterious grade pill? Mysterious grade and heaven grade, although there was only a 1-grade difference. However, the value of the two was very different. A pill below mysterious grade was just a pill, but a mysterious grade pill could already be called a mysterious grade pill. Every mysterious grade pill was not easy to refine. Not only did it require the necessary materials to refine the pill, but it also required a lot of time and effort from the alchemist. It had only been half a month since the arrival of the people from Medicine King's Valley. Everyone was well aware of the grade of that group of alchemists. The fact that this group of people could refine so many heaven-grade top-rank pills in such a short time was enough to make everyone admire them. However, Qiu Yimeng had told them otherwise. This was a mysterious grade mixed yuan pill, so naturally no one believed it. Not to mention that it was impossible for those people to refine enough profound-level pills to be distributed to everyone in such a short period of time, let alone the Hunyuan Dan. It was impossible for a black grade one to appear. As Hu Xingxing spoke, he opened a pill bottle and casually poured out a pill. His frivolous expression suddenly changed as he stared at the pill in his hand in astonishment. The others did the same. The moment the pills were poured out, cries of surprise and confusion rang out. None of you have a low status in your respective sects, so you must have taken a mixed yuan pill before. Naturally, all of you are knowledgeable, take a look for yourselves. Qiu Yimeng smiled slightly. He didn't say anything else. Speaking of which, when she saw this batch of Hunyuan Dan in the morning, her reaction was the same as that of Hu Stars. She thought that young Kai was joking with her, but when she verified it with her own eyes, Qiu Yimeng had to admit that this was indeed a batch of mysterious grade low-rank mixed yuan pills. How could this be? Hu Stars was dumbfounded. A black-level Hunyuan Dan was equivalent to breaking the norm. Shocked, the Hu family young master quickly poured out all the pills and checked them one by one. He quickly discovered that this was indeed a batch of mysterious grade pills. How could this be? Hu Stars was confused and for a moment, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Look, this mysterious grade pill actually has lines like the human body's meridians. An exclamation sounded, as if someone had discovered a new world. Pill veins. Heavens, I also have a few mysterious grade pills with pill veins. I have 1 too, 4 of them. Ha ha ha. I've only heard of pills with pill veins in rumors, I never expected to see one with my own eyes this time. Furthermore, this was not just 1 or 2 profound-level medicinal pills that had formed elixir veins, but a total of 20 to 30% of the medicinal pills had formed elixir veins. Everyone was shocked, their expressions changing, but most of them were filled with excitement. Pill veins. When an alchemist refined a pill, if they had a high enough level of skill, they could cause a pill to form lines similar to the human body's meridians. This was called pill veins. Once something like pill veins appeared on a pill, its value would immediately multiply by several-fold. Because of the pill veins, this kind of pill could display a much better effect than ordinary pills. Moreover, no matter how long it was stored, the pill veins would not lose its medicinal properties. As time passed, the pill veins could even actively absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, nourishing the pill's spirituality and making its medicinal properties stronger. Above the pill veins, there was also something called pill cloud. It was like a dreamy cloud covering the pill. Its effect was even more powerful than pill veins. These were all just legends. Although the status of the people present was not low, it was rare to see a pill with pill veins. It was not that their sects did not have the money to buy it, but this kind of thing could not be refined by ordinary alchemists. Many alchemists who were obsessed with refining pills could only occasionally refine a pill with pill veins under coincidental circumstances. The higher the grade of the pill, the lower the chances of pill veins appearing. Pill veins were the symbol of a top alchemist, the symbol of a top-grade pill. But now, at least 20% of the mysterious grade pills in everyone's hands had pill veins. This ratio was really a bit scary. These pills with pill markings were more exciting than any other treasure. Everyone was whispering to each other excitedly. Tianyuan City's young city Lord Liu Fei Sheng was even more excited, holding 2 bottles of mysterious grade pills in his hands, his face flushed red and his breathing hot. In his heart, he was secretly thinking that joining this young Lord Kai was the best decision he had ever made. The war hadn't even started yet each family had already received 2 bottles of mysterious grade pills. There was still a long way to go, so what was there to be afraid of? Even the 4 girls from 10,000 Flower Palace were somewhat excited at this moment. Han Xiaoqi's temperament was slightly better, and although she was excited, she still maintained the demeanor of a senior sister, but her beautiful eyes were filled with a strange light as she kept glancing towards Yang Kai. Her face was filled with gratitude. As for the lively Yi Han, she had already begun inspecting the pills one by one. Every time she saw a mysterious grade pill with pill veins, she would shout loudly, causing the other senior sisters to glare at her, secretly warning her not to be so rude. Senior Qin is really amazing, Medicine King's Valley is really amazing. After a while, Chu Jingshan of Soaring Feather Pavilion praised. Ian, Senior Qin already has such means. I'm afraid he will be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with Grandmaster Xiao in the future. Feng Qian Hen of Water Moon Hall smiled. A beautiful smile appeared on her face. Huoxing's brow furrowed as he pinched a mysterious grade pill in his hand and stared straight at Yang Kai. He was different from those who came from first-class forces. Although Huoxing was a playboy, the things he came into contact with were undoubtedly better than them. The Hua family also had mysterious grade alchemists, more than one, but as far as Huoxing knew, even if all of them worked together, it was impossible for them to refine so many mysterious grade pills in such a short time. Even if they were given another 10 years, they wouldn't be able to refine so many pills with pill veins. Even if Qin Ziyi was the young valley master of Medicine King's Valley, he was still just a mysterious grade low-rank alchemist. He shouldn't have such great ability, right? Qiu Yimeng's eyes swept over the two young men and women from super families, both of them seeing the doubt in each other's eyes. This whole situation was strange. After obtaining a share of the mysterious grade pills, naturally they would need to cultivate quickly. With the help of these pills, if they wanted to improve their strength, they would need to accumulate enough time. Everyone said their goodbyes and returned to their own courtyards to cultivate. Even Huoxing couldn't wait to go back and try out the effects of these mysterious grade pills. After everyone else had left, Qiu Yimeng looked at Yang Kai with a smile and said, "Shouldn't you tell me? Who was the one who refined this batch of pills?" "Don't ask, I'll tell you when I need to." Yang Kai shook his head lightly. This matter was related to his little senior sister, so Yang Kai wouldn't tell anyone. Moreover, except for the people of Medicine King's Valley and Yang Kai himself, no one else was allowed to enter the pill room. Even Qiu Yimeng didn't dare to rashly enter the pill room and disturb the disciples of Medicine King's Valley, so she really didn't know the origin of this batch of pills. Rolling her eyes, Qiu Yimeng snorted and said, "Even if you don't tell me, I'll know. Is it because of your little senior sister that you refined this batch of pills?" The Qiu family's first young lady's mind was quite sharp and she had judged that Qin Ziyi didn't have such great ability. Besides Yang Kai and the disciples of Medicine King's Valley, only Xia Ningchang could enter and leave the pill room, so naturally she was able to infer some clues. "Don't speak nonsense, be careful or I'll silence you." Yang Kai glanced at her, full of warning. Qiu Yimeng's beautiful face paled slightly as a trace of astonishment appeared on her face. Just now, she had only said those words casually, but according to Yang Kai's reaction, this batch of pills really had something to do with his little senior sister. Not even bothering to argue with Yang Kai, Qiu Yimeng's expression became dignified. Only now did she realize that Xia Ningchang wasn't just a woman Yang Kai liked. However, besides the fact that this woman wore a veil, there wasn't anything special about her. On the other hand, her strength was quite strong, at least at the Immortal Ascension boundary first stage. Could it be that this batch of pills was refined by her? Shaking her head with a wry smile, Qiu Yimeng discarded this ridiculous idea. By the time she regained her composure, Yang Kai had already disappeared. She didn't know when he had left. "Sooner or later, I'll dig up all your secret." Qiu Yimeng snorted, secretly vowing to herself. The various mysteries surrounding Yang Kai made her very curious. Now, even the woman around him had become mysterious, which naturally aroused Qiu Yimeng's curiosity. Yang Kai walked over to the door of his little senior sister's room. During this time, Xia Ningchang had been busy performing alchemy and hadn't had time to rest until today. The two of them hadn't had a good chat for a long time. The door was open, so when he walked up to it, Yang Kai's expression became strange. Not only was Xia Ningchang in the room, but Lan Chudai was also there. The two women seemed to be chatting, both of them smiling. After seeing Yang Kai, the two women's eyes turned towards him. "Two senior sisters, you seem to be in a good mood. What are you talking about?" Yang Kai didn't act polite and walked straight in. Xia Ningchang and Lan Chudai glanced at each other and both chuckled. "Women's matters, we won't talk about them with you." Lan Chudai glared at Yang Kai. "We're not outsiders, why don't you tell us?" Yang Kai chuckled. Hearing him say this, Lan Chudi's eyes suddenly lit up and she secretly rejoiced. Chapter 455. While young Kai was talking, he went to Xia Ningchang and pulled her up. While the senior sister was screaming, he put her on his lap and looked at Lan Chudai, waiting for her answer. Junior brother. Xia Ningchang was embarrassed and uneasy, but her body was held by young Kai. She couldn't get rid of him. In an instant, her face turned red, and her dense eyelashes trembled. She no longer dared to look at the others and buried her head in her chest. What are you afraid of? I said that we are not outsiders, so you don't have to mind. Young Kai laughed, looking like a rogue. Lan Chudi's happy expression slowly faded, and she squeezed out a smile and said, I won't disturb you. After saying that, she got up and left. Xia Ningchang was about to say something, but young Kai quietly scratched her. Suddenly, the senior sister's body tensed up, and she didn't dare to move. Young Kai scratched her flat stomach, which was a very sensitive place. The reason why he did this in front of Lan Chudai was because he wanted her to leave. Time was precious, and he wanted to spend more time with his senior sister. How could he allow others to disturb him? After Lan Chudai left, young Kai waved his hand, and a gentle wind pushed out, closing the door. Outside the room, Lan Chudi's smile was stiff, and her face was bitter. How could she not see young Kai's intention? It was because she saw it that she felt a little uncomfortable. Speaking of which, she and Xia Ningchang were both young Kai's senior sister. They had passed the stage of not knowing each other, and not being familiar with each other. However, the weight of her and Xia Ningchang in young Kai's heart was completely different. On the road of life, often an inadvertent choice can change a lot of things. Slightly shaking her head, Lan Chudai tightened her clothes and suddenly discovered. It was just the beginning of autumn, but it was a little cold. Listening attentively, he noticed that Lan Chudai was already far away. Xia Ningchang's voice was as soft as a mosquito's buzzing as she whispered, Shidi, put me down. Is this not good? Young Kai looked into her eyes with a smile. Oh. Xia Ningchang responded softly, her cheeks burning. You like me? Young Kai smiled evilly. The questions he asked were also extremely tricky and vicious. Xia Ningchang didn't dare to answer. He didn't make a sound, but his heart was beating violently in his chest. That means you don't like it. Young Kai pretended to be disappointed and sighed for a while. That's not it. The little senior sister immediately panicked and waved her hand. Her eyes were filled with anxiety. Young Kai couldn't help but laugh out loud. Sitting next door, Treasurer Meng couldn't help rolling his eyes, a fire burning in his chest. He couldn't wait to rush up to young Kai and beat him so badly that even his mother wouldn't recognize him. Too vile, too shameful. He actually dared to bully his docile, quiet, and cute baby disciple. Too shameless. This old man is so angry. Junior brother, are you kidding me? Xia Ningchang asked softly. Her cheeks under the veil were clearly bulging. Staring at Xia Ningchang, young Kai's eyes softened. It was as if all the tiredness and hard work of this period had been dispelled. The little senior sister felt uncomfortable again, but she didn't have time to criticize him. She changed the topic and said, Junior brother, you don't like senior sister Lan. Young Kai frowned and thought for a moment before saying, It's not that I don't like her, it's just that I try to avoid contact with her as much as possible. Why? I see that senior sister Lan seems to care about you. When she came to find me, she talked a lot about you. It's because of that. Young Kai smiled. Let's put it this way. If I wasn't a member of the Yang family and was still the former High Heaven Pavilion disciple, would little senior sister change her attitude towards me? No. No matter what you are, you will always be my junior brother. I know you won't, but others will. Our senior sister Lan is like this. Right now, she cares about me mostly because of my identity. If one day I'm not a member of the Yang family, perhaps she will change her opinion. Of course, this is just my personal opinion, so I can't say for sure. However, I still feel that I should avoid contact with her as much as possible. I can't say that she's wrong, but I can say that little senior sister is too kind. There's no way to compare people. Yang Kai shook his head and explained. Xia Ningqiang looked at him, but didn't quite understand. However, Yang Kai knew that in her heart, although little senior sister was delicate and naive, she wasn't ignorant of worldly affairs. She was kind-hearted and wouldn't think too much of others. Right, where are my pills? Yang Kai asked. They're on the bed, I'll give them to you. Little senior sister jumped down from Yang Kai's lap, then walked to the bed and took out a bundle, placing it in front of Yang Kai. Opening the bundle, 6 bottles of pills appeared in front of Yang Kai's eyes. 3 bottles are for you to cultivate your Yuan Qi, all Yang attribute pills. The other 3 are for you to cultivate your spiritual energy, Xia Ningqiang said with some regret. Time was too tight, so I could only refine these. That's enough. Yang Kai was very satisfied. These pills were all black-grade low-grade. Like the chaotic Yuan pill, these pills should have been heaven-grade top-rank, but after being refined by Xia Ningqiang, they had all been upgraded to black-grade. Not only could the myriad drug liquid cleanse one's body, but if a drop was added to the pill refining process, it could also improve the quality of the pill. Coupled with the spirit array obtained from the true alchemic way, Xia Ningqiang could easily refine these pills. If it weren't for the myriad drug liquid and the spirit array, with Xia Ningqiang's current level, it would have been impossible for her to achieve this in just half a month. Yang Kai also didn't have so many black-grade materials for her to use. Don't tire yourself out. Yang Kai looked at her with some distress. I'm not tired. During this period of alchemy, my strength has been steadily improving and I'm about to reach the immortal ascension boundary 2nd stage. I only hope that I can refine a lot of pills so that I can grow up faster. Then, I can help you and master in the future. Xia Ningqiang said in a cheerful voice. Alchemy is cultivation, the sacred spirit medicine body is really special. Yang Kai secretly sighed. After chatting with Xia Ningqiang for a while, Yang Kai began to cultivate. As usual, Yang Kai first absorbed the medicinal efficacies of the 3 bottles of Yang attribute pills and transformed them into Yang liquid to quench his Yuan Qi. Next, he used the 3 bottles of mysterious grade pills to explore the mysteries of the true alchemic way. Treasurer Meng had taught him a special spiritual energy cultivation method, which had been in effect during this period of time. With the help of this method, Yang Kai felt that the recovery of his spiritual energy was indeed much faster than before. While Yang Kai cultivated, Xia Ningqiang sat quietly to the side, restoring her strength or sleeping on the bed. Such a scene reminded Yang Kai of the cave mansion under the coiling dragon stream, and he couldn't help but reminisce. 2 days later, Xia Ningqiang once again went to the pill room to perform alchemy, causing Yang Kai to suddenly feel lonely. But as time passed, Yang Kai could clearly feel that his strength was improving step by step, and he was only a step away from breaking through to the Yuan Qi 9th stage. With the immortal ascension boundary on the horizon, Yang Kai couldn't help feeling a little excited. As long as he reached the immortal ascension boundary, he would no longer need to worry about the monitoring of the 8 above immortal ascension boundary masters in War City. In the dawn before darkness, all was quiet as Yang Kai tried to pry into the mysteries of the true alchemic way. Suddenly, a sense of disharmony washed over him, causing him to open his eyes and furrow his brow to furrow, sending out his divine sense like a tidal wave. At the same time, Yang Kai clearly felt that from Meng Wu Ya's room next door, there was also a faint divine sense. Compared to his own, Meng Wu Ya's divine sense could almost be described as imperceptible, but it was still undeniably powerful. The 2 divine senses wandered around the entire mansion. In just an instant, they locked onto a corner at the same time. Courting death. Yang Kai coldly snorted, condensing all of his divine sense into a single point and releasing a mysterious soul skill. In the darkness of the night, a purple light flashed and accompanied by a cry of surprise, a thin and blurry figure suddenly appeared. Who is it? The master in charge of standing guard immediately noticed and his voice spread throughout Yang Kai's mansion. In the next moment, their clothes fluttered in the wind as countless figures dashed over. The thin and blurry figure showed a look of horror and disbelief, as if he had never expected that he would be discovered. Not daring to hesitate, circles of ripple-like patterns suddenly appeared on his body. As the ripples spread out, His entire figure gradually blurred. Just as his figure was about to disappear, a ghostly figure took the lead to approach him. 2 daggers that flickered with cold light danced in the air within a radius of a few feet around him, killing him instantly. Yingju. With a muffled groan, the man's body burst into pieces. Yingju narrowed his eyes and quickly retreated, but when he looked again, there was no trace of the intruder, only a cloud of mist spreading out in all directions. About 1,000 meters away, there was a streak of light that was rapidly escaping, as fast as lightning. Yingju couldn't help showing a look of horror. This speed, shua, countless figures landed on the ground as Yang Kai strode over, staring at the bloodstains on the ground before glancing in the direction the intruder had fled, and couldn't help coldly snorting. What's all this ruckus about? The door to the pill room suddenly opened and Qin Ziyi rushed out with a displeased expression, but when he saw Yang Kai here, he quickly restrained himself and frowned. He also noticed that something was wrong. Someone sneaked in. Did anything happen to the disciples of Medicine King's Valley? Yang Kai quickly asked. No. Qin Ziyi shook his head. Yang Kai released his divine sense and couldn't help feeling relieved. There were no casualties among the disciples of Medicine King's Valley, and Xia Ningchang was also safe. But the pill room was the most heavily guarded location in the entire mansion, yet it was still infiltrated to this extent. Yang Kai's expression couldn't help becoming cold. This was a slap to his face. Check and see if there are any casualties in the mansion. Yang Kai's face was like the night before a storm, making everyone's heart palpitate. Chapter 456. The people who had rushed over quickly scattered, and after a while, all returned and reported the situation to Qiu Yimeng. No losses. Qiu Yimeng's expression was somewhat ugly. Although the news of no losses was very gratifying, how that person had managed to sneak in was still a cause for concern. The possibility of a mole wasn't ruled out, but this possibility was very low. At least, from the look on Yang Kai's face, he didn't seem to suspect that someone was behind this. In other words, that person had just snuck into the pill room with his own ability. Considering all this, Qiu Yimeng's expression changed slightly. Yang Kai's mansion was now filled with many masters, many of whom were Immortal Ascension Boundary 8th Stage masters. The pill room's security was of the utmost importance, yet that master had still almost succeeded. Just how strong was that person? But since he had already successfully infiltrated, why was his trail discovered by others? Qiu Yimeng couldn't understand. Yingju, did you see what that person looked like? Yang Kai frowned and asked. From the darkness, Yingju's voice called out, No, I don't even know if he was a man or a woman, or what his cultivation was. Everyone couldn't help feeling horrified. When it came to concealment and assassination, Yingju was an expert among experts. Even after exchanging a single blow with this person, he hadn't been able to learn anything. This person was really mysterious. However, in my opinion, this person's true cultivation shouldn't be very high. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to not be able to withstand my shadow dancing strike. Yingju speculated. Although that person had successfully escaped, he had still been injured. The blood on the ground was obviously from him. Yang Kai gently nodded, pondering for a moment before saying, then he either used the power of an artifact or cultivated a special secret art. Interesting, who was it that recruited such a master? This time, if he and Treasurer Meng hadn't been vigilant at the same time, perhaps that person really would have succeeded. His purpose for sneaking into the pill room was obvious. He definitely wanted to harm the alchemists from Medicine King's Valley. These people from Medicine King's Valley. If something really happened to them in Yang Kai's mansion, it would be a big problem. Junior brother Yang, there's nothing else. I'll go back first to perform alchemy. Qin Ziyi's expression was calm, as if he didn't have the slightest bit of joy after nearly falling into a desperate situation. Yes. Yang Kai nodded slightly. After Qin Ziyi left, Yang Kai coldly shouted, Xiao Shun, subordinate is here. An Immortal Ascension Boundary 8th Stage master stepped out from the crowd and shouted, subordinate is here. The Yang family blood warrior was the one who had taken the initiative to join Yang Kai after his eighth brother Yang Quan had been eliminated. Under Yang Kai's care, he was fully healed in just 1 or 2 days. From now on, you will stay in the pill chamber. Xiao Shun sneered, Little Gongzi, don't worry, as long as I, Xiao Shun, am alive. No one can get close to the alchemy room. Yang Kai gently nodded. His eyes were deep as he looked in the direction that the mysterious master had fled. He couldn't help but sneer. It seems that this group of people from the Medicine King's Valley still made his brothers wary. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sent people to deal with the people from the Medicine King's Valley. However, who was this person's subordinate? Wasn't he a little too bold? In the east, a ray of light shone, indicating that it was almost dawn. With such a thing happening, no matter who it was, they couldn't feel at ease. Qiu Yimeng immediately redeployed the entire mansion's defenses and began busying herself. Yang Kai stood in place. Looking at the bloodstain on the ground and recalling the scene he had just witnessed with his divine sense, Yang Kai couldn't help shaking his head. He hadn't been able to see what cultivation this person had, nor could he tell whether they were a man or a woman. The secret art or artifact this mysterious master had relied on was really quite mysterious. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps came from outside. Yang Kai turned his head and saw a cultivator from the Chiu family's autumn rain hall hurrying over. Arriving in front of Yang Kai, he cupped his fists and said, Young Lord Kai, someone from the Yang family has arrived. Someone from the Yang family? Yang Kai's expression became solemn. They have arrived at the main hall and are holding a Yang family elder's order, requesting young Lord Kai's presence. I see. Waving the man away, Yang Kai frowned for a moment before suddenly calling out, Everyone, prepare yourselves, there's probably something we need to do today. Haha, there's finally movement. After all these days, all I've done is cultivate, I've been bored to death. Yang Kai, this time, no matter what you're going to do, you have to take us with you. A group of young men and women were all rubbing their hands together in excitement, as if they wanted to see the world burn. We'll talk about it later, I don't know the details yet, in any case, everyone should prepare yourselves first. Yang Kai smiled lightly, turned around, and walked towards the main hall. Qiu Yimeng hurried to catch up and asked suspiciously, How did you know there would be movement? Yang Kai chuckled, If I'm not mistaken, the family should want to accelerate the progress of the inheritance war. Since my eighth brother was eliminated, the remaining 6 of us have been biding our time to develop ourselves. It's been almost a month since then, so it's not good for us to continue like this. Do you think your young family will order you to take the initiative? It won't be such a cheap method, there must be some other way. Yang Kai frowned, he was also guessing what the family would do, but he didn't know, he could only wait until he saw the person who came. As they spoke, they arrived at the main hall. Inside the hall, a man stood with his hands crossed behind his back, waiting. Glancing around, Yang Kai was stunned and quickly stepped forward to greet him. Father? Fourth Master Yang turned around and seeing his son stride over, he couldn't help smiling and nodding gently. Qiu Yimeng also performed quite well, gracefully bowing and saying, Qiu family's Qiu Yimeng greets Fourth Master Yang. Yang Yingfeng glanced at Qiu Yimeng meaningfully and smiled, Young Lady Qiu, you're too polite. You've assisted Kai so we're family. After a pause, he continued, You've suffered under Kai Uncle is too polite. Helping young Kai was niece's own initiative, I didn't suffer. Yang Yingfeng smiled happily, Kai is still young, if he has offended you in any way, I hope eldest niece will forgive him. If you've suffered any grievances here, just tell me and I'll sort them out. Many thanks, Uncle. Qiu Yimeng smiled sweetly. Then I'll have to trouble Uncle to support niece in the future. Saying so, Qiu Yimeng's beautiful eyes flashed as she glared at Yang Kai. It was clear that if he dared to bully her again, she would complain. Yang Kai listened to the old man and young woman inadvertently change the way they addressed each other and his face couldn't help turning black. Quickly changing the subject, he asked, Father, why are you here? Pass down the family's orders. Speaking of business, Yang Yingfeng's expression became serious as he raised the Yang family elder token in his hand and quickly said, 2 hours later, 50 kilometers east of War City, near Pojing Lake, a batch of artifacts will appear. Those who intend to seize them should head there quickly. Yang Kai's eyes lit up as he listened, and Qiu Yimeng's beautiful eyes also flashed. The most fundamental foundation of a cultivator's strength was their own cultivation. But in addition to this, they could also rely on external forces. There were only 3 kinds of external forces: the first was pills, the second was artifacts, and the third was secret arts that could enhance one's combat effectiveness. Yang Kai didn't need to worry too much about pills. With Xia Ningchang and the group from Medicine King's Valley, Yang Kai had the advantage over anyone else. Secret arts could only be discovered, not sought, so what Yang Kai cared about right now was artifact. If a cultivator had a high-grade artifact, they could also enhance their combat effectiveness. In comparison, the improvement brought by artifacts was much more direct. It was much more effective and simpler. This was the current weakness of Yang Kai's mansion. Right now, all of the artifacts used by the cultivators of the various great forces in the mansion were brought by themselves. Each of them had at most 1 or 2 of these artifacts. If they could obtain more artifacts, the strength of the mansion would directly rise to a whole new level. Yang Kai and Qiu Yimeng glanced at each other and saw the interest in each other's hearts. I've already conveyed the order, whether you go or not is up to you young people to decide. Yang Yingfeng smiled slightly. Why wouldn't we go? Yang Kai raised his brow. Are these artifacts contributed by your family? Not only the Yang family, but the central capital's 8 great families also contributed, but our Yang family contributed the majority, while the other 7 families only contributed as a courtesy. How many? A full 1,000. Yang Yingfeng raised one finger. Even though Yang Kai and Qiu Yimeng's status wasn't low and their knowledge wasn't shallow, they still couldn't help feeling a little anxious. 1,000 artifacts. Currently, there were at most 300 people gathered in the mansion. If they could obtain all of these artifacts, it would be equivalent to each person receiving 3 or 4 artifacts, but this was definitely an unrealistic idea. 80% of them are Earth-grade artifacts, and the remaining 20% are mostly Heaven-grade. There are even a few mysterious grade artifact. Then all the more reason to snatch them all. Yang Kai grinned meaningfully. The role of mysterious grade artifacts was simply too great. If one didn't try to snatch them, it would only benefit others. However, to be able to offer up 1,000 artifacts at once, the heritage of the central capital's 8 great families was truly extraordinary. Although most of these artifacts weren't high grade, the number was still frightening. Uncle, is there any other useful information? Qiu Yimeng asked with a smile, apparently wanting to inquire about more information to gain the upper hand. For example, how would this batch of artifacts appear, and where exactly would they appear? If this information could be obtained, it would be of great use. No need to ask, since the family allowed my father to convey the order to me, obviously they will only tell him what he can reveal. Yang Kai waved his hand. Yang Yingfeng glanced over at his son and nodded. Ian, what I know is all harmless information, the same goes for everyone else. You young people are all the same, how much you can obtain in the end will depend on your own methods. I was just asking casually. Qiu Yimeng didn't mind, pretending to be well behaved in front of Yang Yingfeng for some unknown reason. Since that's the case, it's time to prepare. Yang Kai's face filled with a touch of elegance, a fire burning in his eyes as he grinned meaningfully. Father, if you have nothing else to do, you can stay here for a few more days. Yang Kai suddenly turned to Yang Yingfeng. Fourth Master Yang shook his head. Your mother is worried about you. I have to go back and report to her about your situation. Then father, you can do as you please. Chapter 457. The news that 1,000 artifacts were about to appear soon spread throughout War City, causing an uproar. The 6 young lords all acted quickly, preparing to set out. Some busybodies even rushed to Pojing Lake 50 kilometers away, ready to watch the fun. In Yang Kai's mansion, Yang Kai rubbed his forehead as he looked at the group of noisy allies in front of him. Except for the 5 immortal Ascension Boundary Masters from the Duan-Mu family who remained silent, the others all expressed their desire for Yang Kai to take their people to participate in the battle. Even if the 5 immortal Ascension Boundary Masters from the Duan-Mu family didn't speak, each of them had a burning fighting spirit in their eyes. For a time, all of them were arguing endlessly, creating a lively mess. Qiu Yimeng didn't know what to do. Most of these people were Yang Kai's friends, unlike the other young lords. Those who went to help were the subordinates of those young lords and couldn't be casually ordered to do so. I don't care, in any case, this young lord must go this time. Damn it, how can such a big thing happen without my stars? The Hua family young lord said with an attitude of if you don't take me, I'll go by myself. Qiu Yimeng opened her mouth. She also wanted to go, but now Yang Kai was in a difficult position. As the second in command of the mansion, naturally she couldn't use her position for personal gain, so she could only wait for Yang Kai to speak. Looking at these enthusiastic allies, Yang Kai couldn't help smiling wryly. They didn't want to go because they were bored, nor because they were tempted by the 1,000 artifacts, but because Yang Kai had been providing them with pills for cultivation all this time, but they hadn't contributed at all. All of them felt a little apologetic, and now they finally had an opportunity to contribute. Who would be willing to give up? Let's draw lots. Yang Kai made the final decision, letting them continue arguing here without any results, so he decided to use the simplest method. The noise suddenly subsided, and everyone turned to look at Yang Kai. None of them had expected him to use such a childish method to decide this matter. However, there didn't seem to be anything wrong with it. That's good, who goes and who stays, it's up to heaven. Han Xiaoqi smiled and was the first to agree. Then let's draw lots. Fatty Dong also nodded. I have no objections. Hua Stars chuckled. To show fairness, Yang Kai personally arranged it. Soon, the results were out. Of the 11 supporting families, the Hua clan, the Duanmu clan, the Dong clan, and the 10,000 Flower Palace were among them. The Reflecting Moon sect and Tianyuan City followed Yang Kai, while the rest stayed behind to guard the mansion. Just in case. Do you have any objections? Yang Kai looked around. Good, I'll stay and look after the house. Qiu Yimeng smiled. Then let's go. Yang Kai's expression was cold as he waved his hand. He led the way, and the other 6 forces hurriedly followed. Of these 6 forces, with the exception of the Hua family who only had 2 Immortal Ascension Boundary 5th Stage Masters, each of the other forces had at least 5 Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters, including 4 Immortal Ascension Boundary 8th Stage Masters. The remaining levels were unevenly distributed, but none of them were too weak. In total, there were nearly 30 Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters and more than 100 Yuan Qi cultivators, making for a spectacular scene. About a kilometer away from Yang Kai's mansion, there was an inn. At this moment, in the lobby of the inn, a man and 2 women were eating. All 3 of them were very young, and one of them was even a pair of twins. The twins were wearing light blue dresses. They were elegant and refined, and their appearances were enchanting and charming. Their waists were graceful, their breasts were tall and straight, and their skin was white. As they sat there, they attracted the attention of passers-by and guests in the inn. They were greatly moved. Beautiful women were rare, and beautiful twins were even rarer. Of the twin sisters, one had a helpless expression on her face while the other looked indifferent, but there was still a hint of dissatisfaction and resentment between her eyebrows. As for the man, he smiled bitterly again and again. While sighing and drinking his wine, he said, I say, big sister, we've been here for more than a month. Do you want to go in or not? One of the sisters also nodded. That's right, big sister, we can't always live in this inn. Since we're here, why don't we go find him? Why would we want to find him? The other person angrily said, we're not looking for him. We just came out to have fun, I know. The man continued, it's just that War City is in chaos now, and you 2 sisters are living here, showing your face in public will sooner or later attract attention. Haven't you noticed that there have been more people observing you these past few days? We still won't go. The charming woman coldly snorted, if you want to go, you can go by yourselves, I'll just hide in my room and not come out. The man shook his head slightly, Isn't he just hiding his true identity? Besides, this isn't his original intention. The Yang family's young lords don't talk about these things when they're outside. Why do you care so much? The woman pouted her dark red lips, unable to say anything. Just as they were talking, a large group of people suddenly rushed out of Yang Kai's house, led by Yang Kai. This group of more than 100 people rose into the air and flew off towards the east. Looking at the figure of this man, the beautiful eyes of the two women lit up slightly before immediately dimming. There's movement. The man's expression became solemn. Yang Kai suddenly bringing so many people out obviously meant that he had something important to do. Turning to the two sisters, he quickly said, I'm going to follow them. Do you want to come with me? Big sister, I want to go. One of them quickly said. You what? If you don't follow them it'll be too late, let's go. The man didn't give them a chance to explain and quickly rushed out. The two sisters glanced at each other and no longer hesitated, quickly following. Just as they left War City, a group of people appeared from Yang Kai's flank. The two sides glanced at each other and suddenly became tense. It was Yang Zhao's people. Although a month ago, Yang Kai's forces had surpassed Yang Kai's for a short period of time, as time passed, Yang Zhao had gathered more and more support, so this time, the number of people he had brought with him was no less than Yang Kai's, and many of them were even more powerful. The distance between the two sides was less than 300 meters and they advanced side by side. No one was willing to be left behind. Ninth brother, good movement skills. Yang Zhao suddenly chuckled. No wonder third brother was snatched away by you. Second brother is too polite. Yang Kai also smiled slightly. This time, second brother won't let you win. Anytime, if second brother wants to fight, ninth brother can play with you right now. The smile on Yang Zhao's face stiffened slightly. Yang Kai's aggressive momentum made him a little uncomfortable, but after a moment of silence, he shook his head and said, let's get down to business first. There will be plenty of opportunities. Yang Kai didn't continue to provoke him. While the two brothers were talking, suddenly, a gust of wind blew from behind and a figure leapt past the crowd, dashing forward like a bolt of lightning. Whether it was Yang Kai or Yang Zhao, both of them couldn't help narrowing their eyes as they stared at this man's back. Liu Qingyao, Huastars exclaimed, grinding his teeth, that bastard is too arrogant. His voice was filled with anger. However, he was also somewhat helpless. There was no way he could compare with Huastars. Liu Qingyao was indeed better. However, he had directly leapt over the heads of the two groups of people, flying away without even glancing back, obviously confident in his ability. Not putting anyone in his eyes at all. Hearing Huastar's exclamation, Yang Kai's eyes couldn't help lighting up. He had only ever heard of Liu Qingyao's name, but had never seen him in person. After the inheritance war began, Yang Kai also knew that Liu Qingyao had been observing the situation in War City and hadn't pledged allegiance to any of the Yang family young lords. He also hadn't made any trouble for any of the Yang family young lords. Obviously, in his opinion, no one was worthy of him working for. It turned out that this person was Liu Qingyao. Sure enough, he had the capital to be proud of himself. Yang Zhao couldn't help snorting. Ninth brother, this is my Yang family's stage, how can we let others steal the limelight? Kai Yang understood and smiled, that's what I was thinking. The smiles on the two men's faces converged and almost at the same time increased their speed, shooting off into the distance like a meteor. The two groups of people behind them, no matter who they were, couldn't help feeling shocked. Yang Zhao had broken through to the Immortal Ascension boundary first stage a few days ago, and although he hadn't consolidated his cultivation yet, he had already broken through to the Immortal Ascension boundary. Only a first stage cultivator, yet he was able to display such speed, even faster than Liu Qingyao who had just left. Naturally, everyone was amazed. What was even more surprising was that Yang Kai, a trivial Yuan Qi 8th stage cultivator, wasn't any slower than Yang Zhao. His movement skill was so fast that it was as if he was riding the wind, seemingly effortless. The direct descendants of the Yang family really were all monsters. Everyone secretly shook their heads. As he rushed forward, Yang Zhao couldn't help but feel amazed by Yang Kai's speed. It was because he had used a secret technique that he was able to achieve his current speed, but it also consumed a lot of his yuan qi. In other words, he couldn't maintain his current speed for a long time. At most, he could only maintain it for a stick of incense worth of time before he had to stop and rest. Otherwise, he would only run slower and slower. But ninth brother didn't seem to be the case. He neither used a secret technique nor an artifact. His speed seemed to be his own, as if he only needed to circulate his yuan qi to achieve it. For a time, Yang Zhao couldn't help feeling a bit unconvinced, quickly increasing his speed by another notch. But just as he was half a step away, Yang Kai caught up again and said with a light expression, "Second brother, this is very tiring." Yang Zhao couldn't help but smile bitterly. "Let's catch up with Liu Qing Yarrow first." Yang Kai grinned meaningfully. "The Yang family's limelight is mine, second brother. If you can't do it, you can take a break." As soon as he spoke these words, Yang Kai suddenly felt a wave of heat hit him from the side. Yang Kai's whole body seemed to have transformed into a ball of fire, burning fiercely as he rushed forward, instantly closing the distance between him and Liu Qing Yarrow in front of him, leaving a gust of wind behind him that cut across Yang Zhao's face like a knife. Yang Zhao's eyes narrowed as he immediately shouted, "I am the second brother, how can I not do it?" A halo of light bloomed and wrapped around Yang Zhao's body, pushing his speed to the limit as he followed Liu Qing Yarrow like a shadow. Seemingly aware that there were two people chasing after him, Liu Qing Yarrow couldn't help glancing back, but before he could even focus, a fiery red figure rushed past him, causing his yuan qi to fluctuate wildly. "Achem!" Liu Qing Yarrow was surprised and couldn't help muttering, "Such pure yuan qi." Chapter 458. Looking at the backs of these two, Liu Qing Yarrow's brow wrinkled slightly, a look of disdain appearing on his face as he slowly shook his head. Relying on external forces isn't enough. Even as he spoke, his speed suddenly increased. Clearly, he was unwilling to fall behind the others. 50 kilometers wasn't a long distance, so after half a stick of incense worth of time, the three arrived at Pojing Lake one after another. Yang Kai landed on the east side, Yang Zhao on the west, and Liu Qing Yarrow in the middle. Only now did Yang Kai have time to take a good look at this legendary first young lord of the central capital. Dressed in blue robes, this young man was neither luxurious nor vulgar. He wasn't very old, only about 26 or 27 years old. His figure was like a sword, not particularly burly, but his body contained a strength that no one could ignore. His expression was indifferent, as if he didn't care about anything, but his eyes revealed an insufferably domineering aura. This kind of arrogance wasn't a deliberate display of arrogance, but rather the natural demeanor of a master who had been at the top of the world for many years. It was as if he was standing high above the clouds, overlooking the common people. "He's not a soft persimmon." After a brief moment of observation, Yang Kai understood. Although this young man's cultivation was only at the immortal ascension boundary third stage, he was certainly not someone an ordinary immortal ascension boundary cultivator could compare to. His true strength could only be determined when they fought. Remembering the bold words this young man had said before, Yang Kai smiled lightly. This subtle action attracted Liu Qing Yarrow's attention, his pair of dull but extremely bright eyes suddenly locking onto Yang Kai, his divine sense sweeping towards him unscrupulously. Yang Kai's brow couldn't help wrinkling. His expression was somewhat displeased. Although the other party's actions couldn't pose any threat to him, and could even be said to be harmless, so blatantly using one's divine sense to spy on others was an unspoken taboo. It was very likely to cause unnecessary disputes and fights. Therefore, most people wouldn't do such a thing. Liu Qing Yarrow doing this was simply because he didn't care much about Yang Kai. Sure enough, after his divine sense swept over him, Liu Qing Yarrow no longer paid any attention to him and simply stood there quietly. Extremely conspicuous. No one knew why he had come this time. A group of people had already arrived at the shore of Pojing Lake ahead of time. After seeing Yang Kai and Yang Zhao, this man just nodded lightly before turning his attention to Liu Qing Yarrow. His eyes couldn't help trembling slightly as his yuan qi fluctuated slightly. It was rumored that after Yong Wei returned to the central capital, he had a great battle with Liu Qing Yarrow, but no one knew the final result of that battle. Now, the two sides met again. Naturally, there would be some sparks. Immortal Ascension Boundary Second Stage, eldest young master's cultivation speed is really fast. Unexpectedly, Liu Qingyao actually took the initiative to greet Yang Wei. Thanks to young Master Liu, I learned a lot from that battle. Yang Wei's expression was indifferent. Liu Qingyao nodded lightly and said in a flat tone, "If you want to comprehend more, you'll need to learn more. This Liu is always waiting for you." Yang Kai and Yang Zhao's expressions suddenly became strange, glancing at each other from a distance, both of them seeing the deep meaning in each other's eyes. These two hadn't exchanged many words, but the meaning behind their words was intriguing. It seemed that the rumors were true. Yang Wei had been defeated in his battle with Liu Qingyao, and it was very likely that he had been defeated miserably. Otherwise, why would Liu Qingyao say such a thing? Liu Qingyao's arrogance didn't make Yang Wei angry. His expression didn't change in the slightest as he nodded. "I will go. I hope young Master Liu won't be too surprised when the time comes." Liu Qingyao slowly shook his head. "I won't be surprised, because you're not my opponent." As soon as this sentence came out, the allies behind Yang Wei suddenly felt indignant, all of them glaring angrily at Liu Qingyao. Belittling the Yang family in front of them, Yang Wei's allies naturally couldn't remain indifferent. Yang Wei still didn't show any signs of anger, simply raising his hand to stop the restlessness of the people around him, loudly declaring, "I'm not your opponent now, but that doesn't mean I won't be in the future. Just because I won't be your opponent in the future doesn't mean no one in my Yang family can. Young Master Liu, I may not be the strongest of the Yang family's younger generation, but I know you are the strongest of the Liu family. Your Liu family's limit is yours, but my Yang family's limit is still unknown." Liu Qingyao finally showed a look of interest. "Among the Yang family's younger generation, is there someone stronger than you?" After a pause, his eyes suddenly turned to Yang Zhao. "Is it second young master?" Hey. Yang Zhao couldn't help smiling bitterly. Young Master Liu must be joking. Compared to eldest brother, this little brother is no match for him. "You can talk among yourselves, don't count me in." Liu Qingyao chuckled. "If it's not second young master, who else could it be? In your Yang family's younger generation, only you and second young master are strong, the others." Slowly shaking his head, Liu Qingyao glanced over at Yang Kai but didn't pay him any mind. Yang Wei, who had always been meticulous and aloof, suddenly burst into laughter. "Young Master Liu, since you can't see through him, it means you really aren't his opponent." Liu Qingyao's expression became serious as he stared at Yang Wei, not understanding why he was so sure, but after thinking about it for a while, he couldn't think of anyone in the Yang family who could beat him. If there really was such a person, and he couldn't see through him, it meant that this person was truly terrifying. Being able to deceive his eyes was already a big win. "Eldest young master, I hope what you said is true," Liu Qingyao quickly said. "You just wait and see." Yang Wei nodded gently. Yang Kai had been watching with cold eyes and didn't interrupt, but he felt that Yang Wei's eyes were intentionally or unintentionally glancing towards him a few times. What did eldest brother see? Yang Kai secretly wondered. After waiting for a while, Huastars arrived with a large number of people, and at the same time, Yang Zhao's people also gathered around him. When these people arrived, Yang Zhao obviously breathed a sigh of relief and secretly lowered his guard. Just now, he was obviously worried that Yang Wei would take advantage of him being alone to attack him. Although he had a blood warrior guarding him, coming here so hastily was still somewhat dangerous. As the sun rose, more and more people gathered around Pojing Lake. Yang Kang, Yang Shen, and Yang Ying also arrived one after another. After such a long period of preparation and recruitment, it was now possible to distinguish how much support the six brothers had at a glance. The first three had brought more or less the same number of people, and even if there were some differences in strength, it wasn't too obvious, but the three who came later were undoubtedly weaker. Even if these three had a disciple from one of the 8 great families as an ally, their personal charisma and connections were lacking, so it was difficult for them to gather too much support. When they noticed this, the faces of Yang Kang and the others suddenly became ugly. Because even Yang Kai, who everyone thought wouldn't survive the first night, was now ahead of them. If this continued, The situation would only get worse and worse. The three of them all secretly thought that after returning this time, they would have to strengthen the pace of their recruitment. At the very least, they couldn't allow Yang Kai to take the lead. Not only had the 6 young family brothers gathered around Pojing Lake, but the other cultivators who had followed them out of War City had also formed a large circle around the lake. However, these people were very self-aware and all stayed 3 kilometers away from Pojing Lake, only watching from a distance. No one was willing to play around with their lives. With so many masters gathered together, once they were caught up in this mess, they would likely die without even knowing how they died. The pair of beautiful sisters who had been in the inn's lobby earlier were also among them, staring in Yang Kai's direction. After not seeing him for a few months, this young man had become a lot stronger. Perhaps it was because of the change in his identity, but now he was more attractive and aggressive than before. One of the 2 sisters' eyes flashed a strange light, her face filled with an enchanting charm as she stared towards Yang Kai's direction. This kind of mood also indirectly affected the other, causing her heart to beat faster. Gritting her teeth, she took a deep breath, her chest heaving up and down as she helplessly smiled. This was really a sin. After cultivating that divine secret art, the 2 sisters had gradually become one, and because of her younger sister's preferences, she had also gradually been influenced. From time to time, she would think of that man's figure, but she was too embarrassed to show it in front of her younger sister, causing her to feel extremely uncomfortable. This time, she had obviously arrived in War City a long time ago, but she couldn't summon up the courage to see him, so she had been hiding in a kilometer away from his mansion, often looking out the window to see if he would ever leave the compound. But after waiting for so long, he still hadn't appeared. Today, she had finally managed to see him, but she had almost missed this opportunity because of her attitude. Thinking about how she didn't mean what she said, the woman couldn't help feeling a bit resentful. She was like her younger sister, her preferences were written all over her face, there was no need to hide them. "Hey, aren't you going to help him?" the man from before asked with a chuckle. "Help what? There's only 3 of us, what kind of role can we play in such a big scene?" "Ha, that's why only women and villains are difficult to deal with. I shouldn't have come with you." The man was depressed. If he had known that such a big scene would occur, he would have brought everyone from the inn with him. Now, there were only 3 people, and all of them were Yuan Chi cultivators, so they really couldn't play much of a role. Time passed slowly, and everyone was secretly waiting for that batch of artifacts to appear, all of them trying to guess how the Yang family would arrange for 1,000 artifacts to appear here. Yang Kai was also secretly observing his surroundings, using his powerful divine sense to constantly check his surroundings for any signs of movement. Among the crowd of spectators, there were many hidden masters. Perceiving this, Yang Kai was secretly shocked. These masters weren't here to watch the fun, but rather the masters from the 8 great families who were observing the situation. At the bottom of Pojing Lake, there were also some subtle energy fluctuations. These subtle fluctuations were so subtle that even Yang Kai found it difficult to detect them, let alone the others. It seemed that some of the artifacts had been arranged at the bottom of the lake and were only waiting for the right time to appear. R.S. Chapter 459. Perceiving this, Yang Kai's mouth curled up slightly, but he didn't make any movements, simply understanding what was going on. The agreed time soon arrived, and everyone gathered around Pojing Lake couldn't help secretly condensing their strength, preparing to act at any time. Their eyes and ears were alert, not only looking for the location where the artifacts would appear, they were also vigilant against the enemy's movements. Snatching artifacts was bound to result in a fight. The Yang family wanted to use this method to stimulate the progress of the inheritance war. Unlike Yang Kai, the other 5 Yang family young lords also cast their eyes towards Pojing Lake from time to time based on their own guesses, listing it as a key area to be guarded, occasionally whispering to the blood warriors guarding nearby to ask for advice. The atmosphere became more and more tense. All of a sudden, a beam of light shot out from the bottom of Pojing Lake, and a strong energy fluctuation burst out. Visible to the naked eye, under the clear lake, bright patterns flashed one after another, converging to form a mysterious formation that covered the entire bottom of the lake. The surrounding world energy suddenly stagnated. "It's here!" Countless exclamations came from the crowd, all of them craning their necks towards Pojing Lake. Asterisk shio shio shio, asterisk one after another, rays of light suddenly shot out from the bottom of Pojing Lake and shot straight into the sky. Wrapped in these rays of light were a series of various-looking and colorful artifacts, causing everyone's greed to rise. In an instant, nearly 100 rays of light flew up into the sky, bringing with them droplets of water that poured down like a torrential downpour. Everyone's eyes were like locusts biting into these 100 rays of light, their gazes burning hot. Rushing up to a height of about 300 meters. The 100 rays of light slowly came to a stop. Accompanied by a loud explosion, they scattered in all directions at the speed of a meteor. "Young Lord Kai." Huosheng turned to look at young Kai and urged anxiously. Young Kai nodded gently. The next moment, back in the camp. 50% of the people in the camp flew out and grabbed the nearest artifact, each of them using their own methods. In the midst of their laughter and joy, these people grabbed one artifact after another. None of the leaders of the younger generation moved, nor did most of the Immortal Ascension boundary masters. Those who rushed out were all cultivators below the Yuan Qi boundary and Immortal Ascension boundary 3rd stage. It was not only Yang Kai's situation, but also the other people's situation. Because everyone knew that the grade of the first batch of artifacts that appeared would definitely not be too high, so it was naturally not worth it to lose their footing for these artifacts. Moreover, because this first batch of artifacts had spread out in all directions, it was tantamount to delivering them to their doorstep, so they wouldn't encounter any resistance from their enemies. Naturally, there was no reason for them to rush to snatch them. On the other hand, those who were watching the show all had burning gazes. He continuously swallowed his saliva. Since they had come to watch the show, the strength of these people was definitely not too high. Seeing so many artifacts appear at the same time, it was inevitable that they would be tempted. The 6 brothers had brought a total of nearly 800 people, even if only half of them were mobilized. 100 artifacts that seemed like a lot were actually in short supply when they were distributed among the masses. None of the secret treasures flew out of Pojing Lake. They were all intercepted by the cultivator halfway through. After the cultivator who had obtained the artifacts returned to the camp, everyone was grinning from ear to ear. The first batch of artifacts was almost evenly divided between the 6 parties, so no decent battles broke out. The number of artifacts each party obtained was basically the same. They're all Earth-grade low-rank artifacts. Huastars glanced at the artifacts that had been taken back and couldn't help curling his lips, muttering, "The 8 great families are really stingy." Han Xiaoqi's expression was indifferent as she brushed her hair behind her ear and said, "Young Lord Hua, you come from a super family, so you don't understand the hardships of a lower-level cultivator. These artifacts may be nothing to you, but for others, they can greatly enhance their strength." Huastars grinned meaningfully. "Beauty, you're being too polite. Although I am from the Hua family, we are also allies. This issue is worth discussing. When this matter is over, let's have a good chat." Han Xiaoqi suddenly fell silent and shot a pleading look towards Yang Kai, hoping he would say something to stop Stars from harassing her. Yang Kai's brow wrinkled as he seemed to be lost in thought, his eyes fixed on the mysterious spirit array at the bottom of Pojing Lake. The shining lines still continued to emit a brilliant light, illuminating the bottom of Pojing Lake. Almost at the same time Huastar's voice fell, nearly 100 rays of light shot out from the bottom of the lake. Huastars glanced over at Yang Kai and seeing his expression remain unchanged, he quickly shouted, "Snatch." The group of people who had just obtained a harvest once again flew away. "Be careful," Yang Kai suddenly shouted. Everyone was still immersed in the joy of snatching artifacts, so some of them didn't quite understand why he had said this, but after seeing the trajectory of these artifacts, they immediately became vigilant. The second batch of artifacts was not the same as the previous batch. Instead of radiating outwards, they all gathered in a dense cluster above the center of Pojing Lake. Everyone's Yuan Qi condensed, their strength surging, their martial skills and artifacts blossoming, and the 6 groups instantly rushed together. A great battle broke out instantly. Of the 6 groups, almost 400 people had gathered together, and although 90% of them were Yuan Qi cultivators, there were also some Immortal Ascension boundary cultivators. With so many people gathered above the center of Pojing Lake, the scene suddenly became chaotic. Someone with quick reflexes managed to snatch an artifact, but in the next moment he was targeted by 4 or 5 enemies. While the artifact was still warm in his hands, he was struck down by his enemies, his tattered corpse falling from the sky, his blood staining the clear lake water red. Among the crowd of spectators, there was a burst of exclamations and shouts. This kind of melee was what these idle people loved to see. In less than 10 breaths of time, more than 20 people had died one after another, and the number of casualties was still increasing. Almost all the forces had been affected, and every leader of the younger generation had an ugly expression on their faces, gritting their teeth, wishing they could immediately rush up to help. But the 6 Yang family young lords had not issued any orders, so even if they were filled with righteous indignation, they could only bide their time. Everyone knew that this was just an appetizer. At this time, if they were to panic, they would forever be in a passive position. Gradually, the hundreds of artifacts had their owners, but those who held them had become the target of public criticism. Each of the allies protected their own people, fighting and retreating, leaving behind a trail of corpses falling from the sky. Some of the smarter ones, the moment they obtained an artifact, used all their strength to throw it to their own side, then turned around and snatched the artifacts of others. The melee gradually subsided, and the people of the 6 groups gradually distanced themselves from each other, retreating vigilantly. Both of them had their gains and losses. At one point, Pojing Lake's water was dyed red, and nearly 50 corpses were floating on its surface. Your young family's methods are really brilliant. Dong Dong took a deep breath as he watched the tragedy in front of him and slowly shook his head. For more than a month, there had been no fighting, only peace, but because of a single order from the Yang family elder, this calm atmosphere had been broken, forcing the 6 parties to attack each other. Men die for wealth, birds die for food. Huoxing sneered, the Yang family has already seen through this. It's too tragic, Chen Shushu sighed. This was the first time he had participated in this kind of battle since arriving in War City. Seeing that nearly 50 people had died in just half a cup of tea's worth of time, his reflecting moon sect had also suffered losses. Naturally he couldn't help feeling distressed. It's too simple. Yang Kai's eyes flashed deeply as he suddenly said. Simple? Liu Fei Sheng looked at him in amazement, the others also wearing suspicious expressions. Yang Kai didn't respond, simply raising his head and staring in the direction of Yong Wei and Yang Zhao. He found that the 2 of them were also frowning, seemingly lost in thought. Perceiving Yang Kai's gaze, both Yong Wei and Yang Zhao turned to look at him. Exchanging glances, Yang Kai knew that they also had doubts in their hearts. If the process of snatching artifacts this time was really like this, then it was simply too simple. The Yang family couldn't possibly do such a thing. The Yang family's elders were currently hoping for as many people to die as possible, so how could they allow 1,000 artifacts to appear in such a manner? If things continued like this, as long as the 6 parties reached a consensus, they could peacefully divide up this batch of artifacts. Of course, this possibility wasn't high. Yang Kai, Yong Wei, and Yang Zhao had all thought of this, so no matter who it was, all 3 of them were considering what would happen next. The inheritance war was a battle of wits and courage. Blind bravery without strategy was not enough to accomplish anything. Because so many people had died, the atmosphere in the 6 camps was somewhat tense, each of them coldly glaring at each other, waiting for the next confrontation to settle old and new grudges. The grade of this batch is slightly higher, but it's still not very good. Huoxing examined the artifacts that had been snatched back and shook his head. In the eyes of the Hua family young lord, besides heaven-grade and mysterious-grade artifacts, all other artifacts were garbage. Even if they were heaven-grade, they had to be at least heaven-grade mid-rank in order to enter his eyes. The next batch, we won't snatch them, Yang Kai suddenly said. What? Huoxing was stunned. Won't snatch them? Yang Kai turned his head and glanced at him. Speak a little louder, they all heard you. Huoxing couldn't help lowering his voice. Why won't we snatch them? If you don't snatch them, it will only benefit others. Not only was Huoxing puzzled, even the 4 girls from 10,000 Flower Palace were suspicious. In the previous confrontation, 10,000 Flower Palace had also lost a female disciple, so all of them were filled with anger and were preparing to take revenge. At this time, young Kai suddenly saying he wouldn't snatch these artifacts was naturally a bit difficult for them to understand. Let's wait and see. Young Kai shook his head. If I'm not mistaken, the next batch of artifacts should be Earth-grade top rank. If we don't snatch them, our losses won't be great, but if we do, I'm afraid there will be more variables. Listening to him say this, although everyone still had some doubts, they didn't say anything more. They just secretly felt that young Kai was being a bit too cautious. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.